Welcome back to A Clock in the Journal, where timeless stories come alive. Today, we continue with Maurice Leblanc's gripping masterpiece, 813, a tale where Arsène Lupin steps beyond the role of a gentleman thief into a world of intrigue, espionage, and high-stakes mystery. Let's dive in. Chapter 5. Monsieur Lenormand at Work. On the morning of the 31st of May, all the newspapers reminded their readers that Lupin, in a letter addressed to Monsieur Lenormand, had announced the escape of the messenger Jérôme for that date. And one of them summed up the situation, as it then stood, in very able terms. The horrible carnage at the Palace Hotel took place as far back as the 17th of April. What has been discovered since? Nothing. There were 3 clues: the cigarette case, the initials L and M, and the parcel of clothes left behind in the office of the hotel. What advantage has been taken of these clues? None. It appears that the police suspect one of the visitors who was staying on the first floor, and who disappeared in a doubtful manner. Have they found him? Have they established his identity? No. The tragedy, therefore, remains as mysterious as at the beginning. The gloom is impenetrable. To complete the picture, we are told that dissension prevails between the prefect of police and his subordinate, Monsieur Lenormand, and that the latter, finding himself less vigorously supported by the Prime Minister, virtually sent in his resignation several days ago. According to our information, the conduct of the Kesselbach case is now in the hands of the Deputy Chief of the Detective Service, M. Weber, a personal enemy of Monsieur Lenormand's. In short, disorder and confusion reign, and this in the face of Lupin, who stands for method, energy, and steadfastness of mind. What conclusion do we draw from these facts? Briefly, this: Lupin will release his accomplice today, the 31st of May, as he foretold. This conclusion, which was echoed in all the other newspapers, was also the conclusion at which the general public had arrived. And we must take it that the threat was not considered devoid of importance in high places for the prefect of police and, in the absence of M. Lenormand, who was said to be unwell, the deputy chief of the detective service, Monsieur Weber, had adopted the most stringent measures, both at the Palais de Justice and at the Santé prison, where the prisoner was confined. They did not dare, for sheer reasons of shame, to suspend on that particular day the examinations conducted daily by Monsieur Formerie, but, from the prison to the Boulevard du Palais, a regular mobilization of police forces guarded the streets along the line. To the intense astonishment of one and all, the 31st of May passed, and the threatened escape did not take place. One thing did happen: an attempt to execute the plan, as was betrayed by a block of tramway cars, omnibuses and drays along the road taken by the prison van, and the unaccountable breaking of one of the wheels of the van itself. But the attempt assumed no more definite form. Lupin, therefore, had met with a check. The public felt almost disappointed, and the police triumphed loudly. On the next day, Saturday, an incredible rumor spread through the Palais and the newspaper offices. Jérôme the messenger had disappeared. Was it possible? Although the special editions confirmed the news, people refused to believe it. But, at 6 o'clock, a note published by the Dépêche du Soir made it official. We have received the following communication signed by Arsène Lupin. The special stamp affixed to it, in accordance with the circular which Lupin recently sent to the press, guarantees the genuineness of the document. To the editor of the Dépêche du Soir: Sir, pray make my apologies to the public for not keeping my word yesterday. I remembered at the last moment that the 31st of May fell on a Friday. Could I set my friend at liberty on a Friday? I did not think it right to assume that responsibility. I must also apologize for not on this occasion explaining, with my customary frankness, how this little event was managed. My process is so ingenious and so simple that I fear lest, if I revealed it, every criminal should be inspired by it. How surprised people will be on the day when I am free to speak. Is that all? I shall be asked. That is all. But it had to be thought of. Permit me to be, sir, your obedient servant, Arsène Lupin. An hour later, Monsieur Lenormand was rung up on the telephone and informed that Valanglais, the Prime Minister, wished to see him at the Ministry of the Interior. "How well you're looking, my dear Lenormand, and I who thought that you were ill and dared not leave your room." "I am not ill, Monsieur le Président." "So you were sulking in your tent, but you were always a bad-tempered fellow." "I confess to the bad temper, Monsieur le Président, but not to the sulking." "But you stay at home," and Lupin takes advantage of it to release his friends. "How could I stop him?" "How?" "Why, Lupin's trick was of the plainest." In accordance with his usual method, he announced the date of the escape beforehand. Everybody believed in it. An apparent attempt was planned. The escape was not made, and on the next day, when nobody is thinking about it, whoosh! The bird takes flight. "Monsieur le Président," said the chief of the detective service solemnly, "Lupin disposes of such means that we are not in a position to prevent what he has decided on. The escape was mathematically certain. I preferred to pass the hand and leave the laughter for others to face." Valanglais chuckled. "It's a fact that Monsieur le Préfet de Police and Monsieur Weber cannot be enjoying themselves at the present moment. But, when all is said, can you explain to me, Monsieur Lenormand?" "All that we know, Monsieur le Président, is that the escape took place from the Palais de Justice. The prisoner was brought in a prison van and taken to Monsieur Formery's room. He left Monsieur Formery's room, but he did not leave the Palais de Justice, and yet nobody knows what became of him. It's most bewildering, most bewildering." "And has nothing else been discovered?" "Yes. The inner corridor leading to the examining magistrate's rooms was blocked by an absolutely unprecedented crowd of prisoners, warders, counsel, and doorkeepers, and it was discovered that all those people had received forged notices to appear at the same hour. On the other hand, not one of the examining magistrates who were supposed to have summoned them sat in his room that day, and this because of forged notices from the public prosecutor's office, sending them to every part of Paris and of the outskirts." "Is that all?" "No. 2 municipal guards and a prisoner were seen to cross the courtyards. A cab was waiting for them outside, and all 3 stepped in." "And your supposition, Lenormand, your opinion?" "My supposition, Monsieur le Président, is that the 2 municipal guards were accomplices, who, profiting by the disorder in the corridor, took the place of the 3 warders. And my opinion is that this escape succeeded only through such special circumstances and so strange a combination of facts that we must look upon the most unlikely cases of complicity as absolutely certain. Lupin, for that matter, has connections at the Palais that balk all our calculations. He has agents in your ministry. He has agents at the Prefecture of Police. He has agents around me. It is a formidable organization, a detective service 1,000 times more clever, more daring, more varied, and more supple than that, under my own orders." "And you stand this, Lenormand?" "No, I do not." "Then why this slackness on your part since the beginning of the case? What have you done against Lupin?" "I have prepared for the struggle." "Ah, capital! And while you were preparing, he was acting." "So was I. And do you know anything?" "I know a great deal." "What? Speak!" Leaning on his stick, Monsieur Lenormand took a little contemplative walk across the spacious room. Then he sat down opposite Valanglais, brushed the facings of his olive-green coat with his fingertips, settled his spectacles on his nose, and said plainly, "Monsieur le Président, I hold 3 trump cards in my hand. First, I know the name under which Arsène Lupin is hiding at this moment, the name under which he lived on the Boulevard Haussmann, receiving his assistance daily, reconstructing and directing his gang." "But then why, in heaven's name, don't you arrest him?" "I did not receive these particulars until later. The prince, let us call him Prince Dash, has disappeared. He is abroad, on other business. And, if he does not return, the position which he occupies, the manner in which he has flung himself into the Kesselbach case, necessitate his return, and under the same name. Nevertheless, Monsieur le Président, I come to my second trump. I have at last discovered Pierre Leduc. Nonsense! Or rather, Lupin discovered him, and before disappearing, settled him in a little villa in the neighborhood of Paris. By Jove, but how did you know? Oh, easily! Lupin has placed 2 of his accomplices with Pierre Leduc to watch him and defend him. Now, these accomplices are 2 of my own detectives, 2 brothers whom I employ in the greatest secrecy and who will hand him over to me at the first opportunity. Well done, you! So that, as Pierre Leduc, we may say, is the central point of the efforts of all those who are trying to solve the famous Kesselbach secret, I shall sooner or later, through Pierre Leduc, catch, first, the author of the treble murder, because that miscreant substituted himself for Mr. Kesselbach in the accomplishment of an immense scheme, and because Mr. Kesselbach had to find Pierre Leduc in order to be able to accomplish that scheme. And secondly, Arsène Lupin, because Arsène Lupin is pursuing the same object. Splendid! Pierre Leduc is the bait which you are throwing to the enemy. And the fish is biting, Monsieur le Président. I have just had word that a suspicious person was seen, a short time ago, prowling round the little villa where Pierre Leduc is living under the protection of my officers. I shall be on the spot in 4 hours. And the third trump, Lenormand? Monsieur le Président, a letter arrived yesterday addressed to Mr. Rudolph Kesselbach, which I intercepted. Intercepted, eh? You're getting on! Yes, I intercepted it, opened it, and kept it for myself. Here it is. It is dated 2 months back. It bears the Cape Town postmark and contains these words. My dear Rudolph, I shall be in Paris on the 1st of June, and in just as wretched a plight as when you came to my assistance. But I have great hopes of this Pierre Leduc affair of which I told you. What a strange story it is! Have you found the man I mean? Where do we stand? I am most anxious to know. The letter is signed Steinweg. The 1st of June, continued Monsieur Lenormand, is today. I have ordered one of my inspectors to hunt me out this Steinweg. I have no doubt that he will succeed. Nor I, no doubt at all, cried Valenglay, rising from his chair. And I make you every apology, my dear Lenormand, and my humble confession. I was on the point of letting you slide, for good and all. Tomorrow I was expecting the prefect of police and Monsieur Weber. I knew that, Monsieur le Président. Impossible! But for that, should I have put myself out? You now see my plan of campaign. On the one side, I am setting traps in which the murderer will be caught sooner or later. Pierre Leduc, or Steinweg, will deliver him into my hands. On the other side, I am on Arsène Lupin's heels. 2 of his agents are in my pay, and he believes them to be his most devoted helpers. In addition to this, he is working for me, because he is pursuing the perpetrator of the threefold crime as I am. Only he imagines that he is dishing me, whereas it is I who am dishing him. So I shall succeed, but on one condition. What is that? That I am given free scope and allowed to act according to the needs of the moment, without troubling about the public, who are growing impatient, or my superiors, who are intriguing against me. I agree. In that case, Monsieur le Président, in a few days from this I shall be the victor, or I shall be dead. At St. Cloud. A little villa situated on one of the highest points of the upland, in an unfrequented road. It was 11 o'clock at night. Monsieur Lenormand left his car at St. Cloud and walked cautiously along the road. A shadow appeared. Is that you, Gourel? Yes, Chief. Did you tell the brothers Dudeville that I was coming? Yes, your room is ready. You can go to bed and sleep, unless they try to carry off Pierre Leduc tonight, which would not surprise me, considering the behavior of the fellow whom the Dudevilles saw. They walked across the garden, softly entered the house, and went up to the first floor. The 2 brothers, Jean and Jacques Dudeville, were there. No news of Prince Sernine? Asked Lenormand. No, Chief. What about Pierre Leduc? He spends the whole day lying flat on his back in his room on the ground floor, or else in the garden. He never comes up to see us." "Is he better?" "Much better. The rest has made a great change in his appearance." "Is he wholly devoted to Lupin?" "To Prince Sernine, rather, for he does not suspect that the two are one and the same man. At least, I suppose so. One never knows, with him. He does not speak at all." "Oh, he's a queer fish. There's only one person who has the gift of cheering him up, of making him talk and even laugh. That's a young girl from Garches, to whom Prince Sernine introduced him. Geneviève Ernemont, her name is. She has been here 3 times already. She was here today." He added jestingly, "I believe there's a little flirting going on. It's like His Highness Prince Sernine and Mrs. Kesselbach. It seems he's making eyes at her. That devil of a Lupin!" Monsieur Lenormand did not reply, but it was obvious that all these details, to which he seemed to attach no importance, were noted in the recesses of his memory, to be used whenever he might need to draw the logical inferences from them. He lit a cigar, chewed it without smoking it, lit it again, and dropped it. He asked 2 or 3 more questions, and then, dressed as he was, threw himself on his bed. "If the least thing happens, let me be awakened. If not, I shall sleep through the night. Go to your posts, all of you." The others left the room. An hour passed. 2 hours. Suddenly, Monsieur Lenormand felt someone touch him, and Gourel said to him, "Get up, Chief. They have opened the gate." "One man or 2? I only saw one. The moon appeared just then." He crouched down against a hedge. "And the brothers Dudeville?" "I sent them out by the back. They will cut off his retreat when the time comes." Gourel took Monsieur Lenormand's hand, led him downstairs, and then into a little dark room. "Don't stir, Chief. We are in Pierre Leduc's dressing room. I am opening the door of the recess in which his bed stands. Don't be afraid. He has taken his veronal as he does every evening. Nothing can wake him. Come this way. It's a good hiding place, isn't it? These are the curtains of his bed. From here you can see the window and the whole side of the room between the window and the bed." The casement stood open and admitted a vague light, which became very precise at times. When the moon burst through her veil of clouds, the 2 men did not take their eyes from the empty window frame, feeling certain that the event which they were awaiting would come from that side. A slight, creaking noise. "He is climbing the trellis," whispered Gourel. "Is it high?" 6 feet or so." The creaking became more distinct. "Go, Gourel," muttered Monsieur Lenormand. "Find the Dudevilles, bring them back to the foot of the wall, and bar the road to anyone who tries to get down this way." Gourel went. At the same moment, a head appeared at the level of the window. Then a leg was flung over the balcony. Monsieur Lenormand distinguished a slenderly built man, below the middle height, dressed in dark colors and without a hat. The man turned and, leaning over the balcony, looked for a few seconds into space, as though to make sure that no danger threatened him. Then he stooped down and lay at full length on the floor. He appeared motionless. But soon Monsieur Lenormand realized that the still blacker shadow which he formed against the surrounding darkness was coming forward, nearer. It reached the bed. M. Lenormand had an impression that he could hear the man's breathing, and, at the same time, that he could just see his eyes, keen, glittering eyes, which pierced the darkness like shafts of fire, and which themselves could see through that same darkness. Pierre Leduc gave a deep sigh and turned over. A fresh silence. The man had glided along the bed with imperceptible movements, and his dark outline now stood out against the whiteness of the sheets that hung down to the floor. Monsieur Lenormand could have touched him by putting out his arm. This time he clearly distinguished the breathing, which alternated with that of the sleeper, and he had the illusion that he also heard the sound of a heart beating. Suddenly, a flash of light. The man had pressed the spring of an electric lantern, and Pierre Leduc was lit full in the face, but the man remained in the shade, so that Monsieur Lenormand was unable to see his features. All that he saw was something that shone in the bright space, and he shuddered. It was the blade of a knife, and that thin, tapering knife, more like a stiletto than a dagger, seemed to him identical with the weapon which he had picked up by the body of Chapman, Mr. Kesselbach's secretary. He put forth all his willpower to restrain himself from springing upon the man. He wanted first to know what the man had come to do. The hand was raised. Was he going to strike? Monsieur Lenormand calculated the distance in order to stop the blow. But no, it was not a murderous gesture, but one of caution. The hand would only fall if Pierre Leduc stirred or tried to call out, and the man bent over the sleeper as though he were examining something. The right cheek, thought Monsieur Lenormand, the scar on the right cheek. He wants to make sure that it is really Pierre Leduc. The man had turned a little to one side, so that only his shoulders were visible. But his clothes, his overcoat, were so near that they brushed against the curtains behind which Monsieur Lenormand was hiding. One movement on his part, thought the chief detective, a thrill of alarm, and I shall collar him. But the man, entirely absorbed in his examination, did not stir. At last, after shifting the dagger to the hand that held the lantern, he raised the sheet, at first hardly at all, then a little more, then more still, until the sleeper's left arm was uncovered and the hand laid bare. The flash of the lantern shone upon the hand, the fingers lay outspread, the little finger was cut on the second joint. Again Pierre Leduc made a movement. The light was immediately put out, and for an instant, the man remained beside the bed, motionless, standing straight up. Would he make up his mind to strike? Monsieur Lenormand underwent the agony of the crime which he could so easily prevent, but which he did not want to forestall before the very last second. A very long silence. Suddenly he saw, or rather fancied, that he saw an arm uplifted. Instinctively he moved, stretching his hand above the sleeper. In making this gesture, he hit against the man. A dull cry. The fellow struck out at space, defended himself at random, and fled toward the window. But Monsieur Lenormand had leapt upon him and had his two arms around the man's shoulders. He at once felt him yielding, and, as the weaker of the two, powerless in Lenormand's hands, trying to avoid the struggle and to slip from between his arms. Lenormand, exerting all his strength, held him flat against his chest, bent him in two, and stretched him on his back on the floor. "Ah! I've got him, he muttered triumphantly. And he felt a singular elation at imprisoning that terrifying criminal, that unspeakable monster, in his irresistible grip. He felt him living and quivering, enraged and desperate, their two lives mingled, their breaths blended. "Who are you?" he asked. "Who are you? You'll have to speak." And he clasped the enemy's body with still greater force, for he had an impression that that body was diminishing between his arms, that it was vanishing. He gripped harder and harder, and suddenly he shuddered from head to foot. He still felt a tiny prick in the throat. In his exasperation, he gripped harder yet. The pain increased, and he observed that the man had succeeded in twisting one arm round, slipping his hand to his chest, and holding the dagger on end. The arm, it was true, was incapable of motion, but the closer Monsieur Lenormand tightened his grip, the deeper did the point of the dagger enter the proffered flesh. He flung back his head a little to escape the point. The point followed the movement, and the wound widened. Then he moved no more, remembering the three crimes, and all the alarming, atrocious, and prophetic things represented by that same little steel needle which was piercing his skin and which, in its turn, was implacably penetrating. Suddenly he let go and gave a leap backwards. Then at once he tried to resume the offensive. It was too late. The man flung his legs across the window-sill and jumped. "Look out, Gorel!" he cried, knowing that Gorel was there, ready to catch the fugitive. He leant out. A crunching of pebbles, a shadow between two trees, the slam of the gate, and no other sound, no interference. Without giving a thought to Pierre Leduc, he called, "Gorel! Daudeville!" No answer, the great silence of the countryside at night. In spite of himself, he continued to think of the treble murder, the steel dagger. But no, it was impossible. The man had not had time, had not even had the need to strike, as he had found the road clear. Lenormand jumped out in his turn and, switching on his lantern, recognized Gurel lying on the ground. "Damn it!" he swore. "If they've killed him, they'll have to pay dearly for it." But Gurel was not dead, only stunned, and a few minutes later he came to himself and growled. "Only a blow of the fist, Chief. Just a blow of the fist which caught me full in the chest." But what a fellow! There were two of them, then? Yes. A little one who went up, and another who took me unawares while I was watching. And the Dudevilles? Haven't seen them. One of them, Jacques, was found near the gate, bleeding from a punch in the jaw. The other a little farther, gasping for breath from a blow full on the chest. "What is it? What happened?" asked Monsieur Lenormand. Jacques said that his brother and he had knocked up against an individual who had crippled them before they had time to defend themselves. Was he alone? No. When he passed near us, he had a pal with him, shorter than himself. "Did you recognize the man who struck you?" Judging by the breadth of his shoulders, I thought he might be the Englishman of the Palace Hotel. The one who left the hotel and whose traces we lost. "The Major?" "Yes, Major Parbury." After a moment's reflection, Monsieur Lenormand said, "There is no doubt possible. There were two of them in the Kesselbach case, the man with the dagger, who committed the murders, and his accomplice, the Major." "That is what Prince Sernine thinks," muttered Jacques Dudeville. "And tonight," continued the chief detective, "it is they again, the same two." And he added, "So much the better. The chance of catching two criminals is 100 times greater than the chance of catching one." Monsieur Lenormand attended to his men, had them put to bed, and looked to see if the assailants had dropped anything or left any traces. He found nothing, and went back to bed again himself. In the morning, as Gurel and the Dudevilles felt none the worse for their injuries, he told the two brothers to scour the neighborhood, and himself set out with Gurel for Paris, in order to hurry matters on and give his orders. He lunched in his office. At 2 o'clock he heard good news. One of his best detectives, Duria, had picked up Steinweg, Rudolf Kesselbach's correspondent, as the German was stepping out of a train from Marseille. "Is Duelsy there?" "Yes, Chief," said Gurel. "He's here with the German." "Have them brought in to me." At that moment, the telephone bell rang. It was Jean Dudeville, speaking from the post office at Garches. The conversation did not take long. "Is that you, Jean? Any news?" "Yes, Chief. Major Parbury." "Well, we have found him. He has become a Spaniard and has darkened his skin. We have just seen him. He was entering the Garches Free School. He was received by that young lady, the girl who knows Prince Sernine, Genevieve Ernemont. Thunder! Monsieur Lenormand let go the receiver, made a grab at his hat, flew into the passage, met Duelsy and the German, shouted to them to meet him in his office at 6 o'clock, rushed down the stairs, followed by Gurel and 2 inspectors whom he picked up on the way, and dived into a taxicab. "Quick as you can to Garches. 10 francs for yourself." He stopped the car a little before the Parc de Villeneuve, at the turn of the lane that led to the school. Jean Dudeville was waiting for him and at once exclaimed, "He slipped away 10 minutes ago by the other end of the lane." "Alone?" "No, with the girl." Monsieur Lenormand took Dudeville by the collar. "Wretch! You let him go! But you ought to have... My brother is on his track. A lot of good that will do us. He'll stick your brother. You're no match for him, either of you." He himself took the steering wheel of the taxi and resolutely drove into the lane, regardless of the cart ruts and of the bushes on each side. They soon emerged on a parish road, which took them to a crossway where 5 roads met. Monsieur Lenormand, without hesitation, chose the one on the left, the Sunkukufa road. As a matter of fact, at the top of the slope that runs down to the lake, they met the other Dudeville brother, who shouted, "They are in a carriage, half a mile away." The chief did not stop. He sent the car flying down the incline, rushed along the bends, drove round the lake, and suddenly uttered an exclamation of triumph. Right at the top of a little hill that stood in front of them, he had seen the hood of a carriage. Unfortunately, he had taken the wrong road and had to back the machine. When he reached the place where the roads branched, the carriage was still there, stationary, and, suddenly, while he was turning, he saw a girl spring from the carriage. A man appeared on the step. The girl stretched out her arm. 2 reports rang out. She had taken bad aim, without a doubt, for a head looked round the other side of the hood, and the man, catching sight of the motor cab, gave his horse a great lash with the whip, and it started off at a gallop. The next moment, a turn of the road hid the carriage from sight. M. Lenormand finished his tacking in a few seconds, darted straight up the incline, passed the girl without stopping, and turned round boldly. He found himself on a steep, pebbly forest road, which ran down between dense woods, and which could only be followed very slowly, and with the greatest caution. But what did he care? 20 yards in front of him, the carriage, a sort of 2-wheeled cabriolet, was dancing over the stones, drawn, or rather held back, by a horse which knew enough only to go very carefully, feeling its way and taking no risks. There was nothing to fear. Escape was impossible, and the 2 conveyances went shaking and jolting downhill. At one moment, they were so close together that Monsieur Lenormand thought of alighting and running with his men. But he felt the danger of putting on the brake on so steep a slope, and he went on, pressing the enemy closely, like a prey which one keeps within sight, within touch. "We've got him, Chief, we've got him," muttered the inspectors, excited by the unexpected nature of the chase. At the bottom, the way flattened out into a road that ran towards the Seine, towards Bougival. The horse, on reaching level ground, set off at a jog trot, without hurrying itself, and keeping to the middle of the road. A violent effort shook the taxi. It appeared, instead of rolling, to proceed by bounds like a darting fawn, and, slipping by the roadside slope, ready to smash any obstacle, it caught up the carriage, came level with it, passed it. An oath from Monsieur Lenormand. Shouts of fury. The carriage was empty. The carriage was empty. The horse was going along peacefully, with the reins on its back, no doubt returning to the stable of some inn in the neighborhood, where it had been hired for the day. Suppressing his inward rage, the chief detective merely said, "The major must have jumped out during the few seconds when we lost sight of the carriage, at the top of the descent. We have only to beat the woods, Chief, and we are sure to return empty-handed. The beggar is far away by this time. He's not one of those who are caught twice in one day." "Oh, hang it all, hang it all!" They went back to the young girl, whom they found in the company of Jacques Dudeville, and apparently none the worse for her adventure. M. Lenormand introduced himself, offered to take her back home, and at once questioned her about the English major, Parbury. She expressed astonishment. "He is neither English nor a major, and his name is not Parbury." "Then what is his name?" "Juan Ribera. He is a Spaniard sent by his government to study the working of the French schools." "As you please. His name and his nationality are of no importance. He is the man we are looking for." "Have you known him long?" "A fortnight or so." "He had heard about a school which I have founded at Garges, and he interested himself in my experiment to the extent of proposing to make me an annual grant, on the one condition that he might come from time to time to observe the progress of my pupils. I had not the right to refuse." "No, of course not, but you should have consulted your acquaintances. Is not Prince Sernine a friend of yours? He is a man of good counsel." "Oh, I have the greatest confidence in him, but he is abroad at present." "Did you not know his address?" No. And besides, what could I have said to him? That gentleman behaved very well. It was not until today. But I don't know if... I beg you, mademoiselle, speak frankly. You can have confidence in me also. Well, M. Ribera came just now. He told me that he had been sent by a French lady who was paying a short visit to Bougival, that this lady had a little girl whose education she would like to entrust to me, and that she wished me to come and see her without delay. The thing seemed quite natural. And, as this is a holiday, and as M. Ribera had hired a carriage which was waiting for him at the end of the road, I made no difficulty about accepting a seat in it. But what was his object, after all? She blushed and said, "To carry me off, quite simply. He confessed it to me after half an hour." "Do you know nothing about him?" "No." "Does he live in Paris?" "I suppose so." "Has he ever written to you? Do you happen to have a few lines in his handwriting, anything which he left behind, that may serve us as a clue?" "No clue at all." "Oh, wait a minute, but I don't think that has any importance." "Speak, speak, please." "Well, 2 days ago, the gentleman asked permission to use my typewriting machine, and he typed out, with difficulty, for he evidently had no practice, a letter of which I saw the address by accident." "What was the address?" "He was writing to the journal, and he put about 20 stamps into the envelope." "Yes, the agony column, no doubt," said Monsieur Lenormand. "I have today's number with me, Chief," said Gorel. Monsieur Lenormand unfolded the sheet and looked at the 8th page. Presently he gave a start. He had read the following sentence, printed with the usual abbreviation. 4. To any person knowing Mr. Steinweg. Advertiser wishes to know if he is in Paris and his address. Reply through this column. Forcible advertisements in the French newspapers are charged by the line, not by the word, and consequently nearly every word is clipped down to 2, 3, or 4 letters. Translator's note. "Steinweg," exclaimed Gorel. "But that's the very man whom Dieuzy is bringing to you." "Yes, yes," said Monsieur Lenormand to himself. "It's the man whose letter to Mr. Kesselbach I intercepted, the man who put Kesselbach on the track of Pierre Leduc. So they, too, want particulars about Pierre Leduc and his past? They, too, are groping in the dark?" ... Quote. He rubbed his hands. Steinweg was at his disposal. In less than an hour, Steinweg would have spoken. In less than an hour, the murky veil which oppressed him, and which made the Kesselbach case the most agonizing and the most impenetrable that he had ever had in hand, that veil would be torn asunder. Chapter 6. Monsieur Lenormand Succumbs. Monsieur Lenormand was back in his room at the Prefecture of Police at 6 o'clock in the evening. He at once sent for Dieuzy. "Is your man here?" "Yes, Chief." "How far have you got with him?" "Not very. He won't speak a word. I told him that, by a new regulation, foreigners were obliged to make a declaration at the prefecture as to the object and the probable length of their stay in Paris. And I brought him here to your secretary's office. I will question him." But, at that moment, an office messenger appeared. "There's a lady asking to see you at once, Chief." "Have you her card?" "Here, Chief." "Mrs. Kesselbach. Show her in." He walked across the room to receive the young widow at the door and begged her to take a seat. She still wore the same disconsolate look, the same appearance of illness, and that air of extreme lassitude which revealed the distress of her life. She held out a copy of the journal and pointed to the line in the agony column which mentioned Steinweg. "Old Steinweg was a friend of my husband's," she said, "and I have no doubt that he knows a good many things." "Dieuzy," said Monsieur Lenormand, "bring the person who is waiting. Your visit, madame, will not have been useless. I will only ask you, when this person enters, not to say a word." The door opened. A man appeared, an old man with white whiskers meeting under his chin, and a face furrowed with deep wrinkles, poorly clad, and wearing the hunted look of those wretches who roam about the world in search of their daily pittance. He stood on the threshold, blinking his eyelids, stared at Monsieur Lenormand, seemed confused by the silence that greeted him on his entrance, and turned his hat in his hands with embarrassment. But suddenly he appeared stupefied. His eyes opened wide, and he stammered, Mrs. Kesselbach. He had seen the young widow, and, recovering his serenity, smiling, losing his shyness, he went up to her, and, in a strong German accent, "Oh, I am glad. At last. I thought I should never. I was so surprised to receive no news down there, no telegrams. And how is our dear Rudolf Kesselbach?" The lady staggered back, as though she had been struck in the face, and at once fell into a chair and began to sob. "What's the matter? Why, what's the matter?" asked Steinweg. Monsieur Lenormand interposed. "I see, sir, that you know nothing about certain events that have taken place recently. Have you been long traveling?" "Yes, 3 months. I had been up to the Rand. Then I went back to Cape Town and wrote to Rudolph from there. But on my way home by the East Coast route, I accepted some work at Port Said. Rudolph has had my letter, I suppose." "He is away. I will explain the reason of his absence. But first, there is a point on which we should be glad of some information. It has to do with the person whom you knew, and to whom you used to refer, in your intercourse with Mr. Kesselbach, by the name of Pierre Leduc." "Pierre Leduc? What? Who told you?" The old man was utterly taken aback. He spluttered out again. "Who told you? Who disclosed to you?" Quote, "Mr. Kesselbach. Never. It was a secret which I confided to him, and Rudolph keeps his secrets, especially this one. Nevertheless, it is absolutely necessary that you should reply to our questions. We are at this moment engaged on an inquiry about Pierre Leduc, which must come to a head without delay, and you alone can enlighten us, as Mr. Kesselbach is no longer here." "Well then," cried Steinweg, apparently making up his mind, "what do you want?" "Do you know Pierre Leduc?" "I have never seen him, but I have long been the possessor of a secret which concerns him. Through a number of incidents which I need not relate, and thanks to a series of chances, I ended by acquiring the certainty that the man in whose discovery I was interested was leading a dissolute life in Paris, and that he was calling himself Pierre Leduc, which is not his real name." "But does he know his real name himself?" "I presume so. And you?" "Yes, I know it." "Well, tell it to us." He hesitated, then vehemently, "I can't," he said. "No, I can't." "But why not?" "I have no right to. The whole secret lies there." When I revealed the secret to Rudolph, he attached so much importance to it that he gave me a large sum of money to purchase my silence, and he promised me a fortune, a real fortune, on the day when he should succeed, first, in finding Pierre Leduc, and, next, in turning the secret to account. He smiled bitterly. "The large sum of money is already lost. I came to see how my fortune was getting on." "Mr. Kesselbach is dead," said the chief detective. Steinweg gave a bound. "Dead? Is it possible? No, it's a trap. Mrs. Kesselbach, is it true?" She bowed her head. He seemed crushed by this unexpected revelation, and at the same time it must have been infinitely painful to him, for he began to cry, "My poor Rudolph! I knew him when he was a little boy. He used to come and play at my house at Augsburg. I was very fond of him." And calling Mrs. Kesselbach to witness, "And he of me. Was he not, Mrs. Kesselbach? He must have told you. His old daddy Steinweg, he used to call me." M. Lenormand went up to him, and in his clearest voice, "Listen to me," he said. "Mr. Kesselbach died murdered. Come, be calm. Exclamations are of no use. He died murdered, I say, and all the circumstances of the crime prove that the culprit knew about the scheme in question. Was there anything in the nature of that scheme that would enable you to guess? Quote, Steinweg stood dumbfounded. He stammered, "It was my fault. If I had not suggested the thing to him." Mrs. Kesselbach went up to him, entreating him. "Do you think? Have you any idea? Oh, Steinweg, I implore you. ... Quote. I have no idea. I have not reflected," he muttered. "I must have time to reflect." "Cast about in Mr. Kesselbach's surroundings," said Monsieur Lenormand. "Did nobody take part in your interviews at that time? Was there nobody in whom he himself could have confided?" "No." "Think well." Both the others, Dolores and Monsieur Lenormand, leant toward him, anxiously awaiting his answer. "No," he said. "I don't see—" "Think well," repeated the chief detective. "The murderer's Christian name and surname begin with an L and an M." "An L," he echoed. "I don't see—" "An L, an M. Yes, the initials are in gold on the corner of a cigarette case belonging to the murderer." "A cigarette case?" asked Steinweg, making an effort of memory. "A gunmetal case, and one of the compartments is divided into two spaces, the smaller for cigarette papers, the other for tobacco." Two spaces, repeated Steinweg, whose thoughts seemed stimulated by that detail. "Couldn't you show it to me?" "Here it is. Or rather, this is an exact reproduction," said Monsieur Lenormand, giving him a cigarette case. "Eh, what?" said Steinweg, taking the case in his hands. He looked at it with stupid eyes, examined it, turned it over in every direction, and suddenly gave a cry, the cry of a man struck with a horrible idea. And he stood like that, livid, with trembling hands and wild, staring eyes. "Speak, come, speak," said Monsieur Lenormand. "Oh," he said, as though blinded with light. "Now all is explained. ... Quote. Speak, speak." He walked across to the windows with a tottering step, then returned, and rushing up to the chief detective, Sir, Rudolph's murderer. I'll tell you, well—" He stopped short. Well, there was a moment's pause. Was the name of the odious criminal about to echo through the great silence of the office, between those walls which had heard so many accusations, so many confessions? Monsieur Lenormand felt as if he were on the brink of the unfathomable abyss, and as if a voice were mounting up to him. "A few seconds more and he would know—" "No," muttered Steinweg. "No, I can't." "What's that you say?" cried the chief detective furiously. "I say that I can't, but you have no right to be silent. The law requires you to speak." "Tomorrow. I will speak tomorrow. I must have time to reflect. Tomorrow I will tell you all that I know about Pierre Leduc, all that I suppose about that cigarette case. Tomorrow, I promise you. It was obvious that he possessed that sort of obstinacy against which the most energetic efforts are of no avail." Monsieur Lenormand yielded. "Very well. I give you until tomorrow, but I warn you that, if you do not speak tomorrow, I shall be obliged to go to the examining magistrate." He rang and, taking Inspector Giusy aside, said, "Go with him to his hotel, and stay there. I'll send you 2 men. And mind you keep your eyes about you. Somebody may try to get hold of him." The inspector went off with Steinweg, and Monsieur Lenormand, returning to Mrs. Kesselbach, who had been violently affected by this scene, made his excuses. "Pray accept all my regrets, madame. I can understand how upset you must feel." He questioned her as to the period at which Mr. Kesselbach renewed his relations with old Steinweg, and as to the length of time for which those relations lasted. But she was so much worn out that he did not insist. "Am I to come back tomorrow?" she asked. "No, it's not necessary. I will let you know all that Steinweg says. May I see you down to your carriage? These 3 flights are rather steep." He opened the door and stood back to let her pass. At that moment shouts were heard in the passage, and people came running up, inspectors on duty, office messengers, Clerks. Chief! Chief! What's the matter? Dieuzy. But he's just left here. He's been found on the staircase. Not dead? ... Quote, no, stunned, fainting. But the man who was with him. Old Steinweg? He's disappeared. Damn it! He rushed along the passage and down the stairs, where he found Dieuzy lying on the first-floor landing, surrounded by people who were attending to him. He saw Gurel coming up again. Oh, Gurel, have you been downstairs? Did you come across anybody? No, Chief. But Dieuzy was recovering consciousness, and, almost before he had opened his eyes, mumbled. Here, on the landing, the little door. Oh, hang it, the door of Court 7. 5, shouted the chief detective. Didn't I say that it was to be kept locked? It was certain that, sooner or later, he seized the door handle. Oh, of course, the door is bolted on the other side now. Since M. Lenormand left the detective service, 2 other criminals have escaped by the same door after shaking off the officers in charge of them. The police kept both cases dark. Nevertheless, it would be very easy, if this communication is absolutely required, to remove the useless bolt on the other side of the door, which enables the fugitive to cut off all pursuit and to walk away quietly through the passage leading to Civil Court 7 and through the corridor of the Chief President's Court. The door was partly glazed. He smashed a pane with the butt end of his revolver, drew the bolt, and said to Gurel, "Run through this way to the exit on the Place Dauphine." He went back to Dieuzy. "Come, Dieuzy, tell me about it. How did you come to let yourself be put into this state?" "A blow in the pit of the stomach, Chief." "A blow? From that old chap? Why, he can hardly stand on his legs." ... Quote, "Not the old man, Chief, but another, who was walking up and down the passage while Steinweg was with you, and who followed us as though he were going out too. When we got as far as this, he asked me for a light. I looked for my matches. Then he caught me a punch in the stomach. I fell down, and as I fell, I thought I saw him open that door and drag the old man with him." "Would you know him again?" "Oh, yes, Chief. A powerful fellow, very dark-skinned. A southerner of sorts, that's certain." "Ribeira," snarled Monsieur Lenormand. "Always Ribeira. Ribeira, alias Parbury. Oh, the impudence of the scoundrel! He was afraid of what old Steinweg might say, and came to fetch him away under my very nose." And stamping his foot with anger, "But dash it! How did he know that Steinweg was here, the blackguard? It's only 4 hours since I was chasing him in the St. Cucufa woods. And now he's here. How did he know? One would think he lived inside my skin." ... Quote, "He was seized with one of those fits of dreaming in which he seemed to hear nothing and see nothing." Mrs. Kesselbach, who passed at that moment, bowed without his replying. But a sound of footsteps in the corridor roused him from his lethargy. "At last? Is that you, Gurel?" "I've found out how it was, Chief," said Gurel, panting for breath. "There were 2 of them. They went this way and out of the Place Dauphine. There was a motor car waiting for them. There were 2 people inside. One was a man dressed in black, with a soft hat pulled over his eyes." "That's he," muttered Monsieur Lenormand. "That's the murderer, the accomplice of Ribeira, Parbury. And who was the other?" A woman without a hat. A servant girl, it might be. And good-looking, I'm told, with red hair." What? You say she had red hair?" "Yes." Monsieur Lenormand turned round with a bound, ran down the stairs 4 steps at a time, hurried across the courtyard, and came out on the Quai des Orfèvres. "Stop!" he shouted. A Victoria and pair was driving off. It was Mrs. Kesselbach's carriage. The coachman heard and pulled up his horses. Monsieur Lenormand sprang on the step. "I beg 1,000 pardons, madame, but I cannot do without your assistance. I will ask you to let me go with you. But we must act swiftly. Gurel, Where's my taxi?" "I've sent it away, Chief." "Well then, get another, quick." The men all ran in different directions, but 10 minutes elapsed before one of them returned with a motor cab. Monsieur Lenormand was boiling with impatience. Mrs. Kesselbach, standing on the pavement, swayed from side to side with her smelling salts in her hand. At last they were seated. "Gorel, get up beside the driver and go straight to Garches." "To my house?" asked Dolores, astounded. He did not reply. He leant out of the window, waved his pass, explained who he was to the policeman regulating the traffic in the streets. At last, when they reached the Cours la Reine, he sat down again and said, "I beseech you, madame, to give me plain answers to my questions. Did you see Mademoiselle Geneviève Ernemont just now, at about 4 o'clock? "Geneviève?" "Yes, I was dressing to go out." "Did she tell you of the advertisement about Steinweg in the journal?" "She did." "And it was that which made you come to see me?" "Yes." "Were you alone during Mademoiselle Ernemont's visit?" "Upon my word, I can't say." "Why?" "Recollect." "Was one of your servants present?" "Probably, as I was dressing." "What are their names?" "Suzanne and Gertrude." "One of them has red hair, has she not?" "Yes, Gertrude." "Have you known her long?" "Her sister has always been with me." "And so has Gertrude, for years." "She is devotion and honesty personified." "In short, you will answer for her?" "Oh, absolutely." "Very well, very well." It was 7:30, and the daylight was beginning to wane when the taxicab reached the house of retreat. Without troubling about his companion, the chief detective rushed into the porter's lodge. "Mrs. Kesselbach's maid has just come in, has she not?" "Whom do you mean, the maid?" "Why, Gertrude, one of the 2 sisters." "But Gertrude can't have been out, sir. We haven't seen her go out." "Still, someone has just come in." "No, sir. We haven't opened the door to anybody since. Let me see. 6 o'clock this evening." "Is there no other way out than this gate?" "No. The walls surround the estate on every side, and they are very high." "Mrs. Kesselbach, we will go to your house, please." They all 3 went. Mrs. Kesselbach, who had no key, rang. The door was answered by Suzanne, the other sister. "Is Gertrude in?" asked Mrs. Kesselbach. "Yes, ma'am, in her room." "Send her down, please," said the chief detective. After a moment, Gertrude came downstairs, looking very attractive, and engaging in her white embroidered apron. She had, in point of fact, a rather pretty face, crowned with red hair. M. Lenormand looked at her for a long time without speaking, as though he were trying to read what lay behind those innocent eyes. He asked her no questions. After a minute, he simply said, "That will do, thank you. Come, Goel." He went out with the sergeant and at once, as they followed the darkling paths of the garden, said, "That's the one!" "Do you think so, Chief? She looks so placid." "Much too placid. Another would have been astonished, would have wanted to know why I sent for her. Not this one. Nothing but the concentrated effort of a face that is determined to smile at all costs. Only, I saw a drop of perspiration trickle from her temple along her ear. So that everything becomes plain. Gertrude is in league with the 2 ruffians who are conspiring round the Kesselbach case, in order either to discover and carry out the famous scheme, or to capture the widow's millions. No doubt the other sister is in the plot as well. At 4 o'clock, Gertrude, learning that I know of the advertisement in the journal, takes advantage of her mistress's absence, hastens to Paris, finds Ribera and the man in the soft hat, and drags them off to the Palais, where Ribera annexes Master Steinweg for his own purposes. He reflected and concluded. All this proves, first, the importance which they attach to Steinweg and their fear of what he may reveal. Secondly, that a regular plot is being hatched around Mrs. Kesselbach. Thirdly, that I have no time to lose, for the plot is ripe. "Very well," said Gorel. "But one thing remains unexplained. How was Gertrude able to leave the garden in which we now are, and to enter it again, unknown to the porter and his wife? Through a secret passage which the rogues must have contrived to make quite recently. And which would end, no doubt, said Gorel, in Mrs. Kesselbach's house. Yes, perhaps, said Monsieur Lenormand. Perhaps, but I have another idea. They followed the circuit of the wall. It was a bright night, and though their two forms were hardly distinguishable, they themselves could see enough to examine the stones of the walls and to convince themselves that no breach, however skillful, had been effected. A ladder, very likely, suggested Gorel. No, because Gertrude is able to get out in broad daylight. A communication of the kind I mean can evidently not end out of doors. The entrance must be concealed by some building already in existence. There are only the 4 garden houses, objected Gorel, and they are all inhabited. I beg your pardon. The 3rd, the Pavillon Hortense, is not inhabited. Who told you so? The porter. Mrs. Kesselbach hired this house, which is near her own, for fear of the noise. Who knows but that, in so doing, she acted under Gertrude's influence? He walked round the house in question. The shutters were closed. He lifted the latch of the door, on the off chance. The door opened. Ah, Gorel, I think we've struck it. Let's go in. Light your lantern. Oh, the hall, the drawing room, the dining room. That's no use. There must be a basement, as the kitchen is not on this floor. This way, Chief. The kitchen stairs are here. They went down into a rather large kitchen, crammed full of wicker-work garden chairs and flower stands. Beside it was a wash-house, which also served as a cellar, and which presented the same untidy sight of objects piled one on the top of the other. What is that shiny thing down there, Chief? Gorel stooped and picked up a brass pin with a head made of an imitation pearl. The pearl is quite bright still, said Monsieur Lenormand, which it would not be if it had been lying in this cellar long. Gertrude passed this way, Gorel. Gorel began to demolish a great stack of empty wine casks, writing desks and old rickety tables. You are wasting your time, said Monsieur Lenormand. If that is the way out, how would she have time first to move all those things and then to replace them behind her? Look, here is a shutter out of use, which has no valid reason for being fastened to the wall by that nail. Draw it back. Gorel did so. Behind the shutter the wall was hollowed out. By the light of the lantern they saw an underground passage running downwards. I was right, said Monsieur Lenormand. The communication is of recent date. You see, it's a piece of work hurriedly done, and not intended to last for any length of time. No masonry. 2 planks, placed crosswise at intervals, with a joist to serve as a roof. And that is all. It will hold up as best it may. Well enough, in any case, for the object in view, that is to say what, Chief? Well, first, to allow of the going backwards and forwards between Gertrude and her accomplices, and then, one day soon, of the kidnapping, or rather the total, miraculous, incomprehensible disappearance of Mrs. Kesselbach. They proceeded cautiously, so as not to knock against certain beams which did not look over safe. It at once became evident that the tunnel was much longer than the 50 yards at most that separated the house from the boundary of the garden. It must, therefore, end at a fair distance from the walls and beyond the road that skirted the property. We are not going in the direction of Villeneuve and the lake, are we? Asked Gorel. Not at all the other way about, declared Monsieur Lenormand. The tunnel descended with a gentle slope. There was a step, then another, and they veered toward the right. They at once knocked up against a door which was fitted into a rubble frame, carefully cemented. Monsieur Lenormand pushed it, and it opened. 1 second, Gorel, he said, stopping. Let us think. It might perhaps be wiser to turn back. Why? We must reflect that Ribeira will have foreseen the danger, and presume that he has taken his precautions, in case the underground passage should be discovered. Now he knows that we are on his track. He knows that we are searching the garden. He no doubt saw us enter the house. How do I know that he is not at this moment laying a trap for us? There are 2 of us, Chief. And suppose there were 20 of them. He looked in front of him. The tunnel sloped upward again, closed by another door which was at 5 or 6 yards distance. "Let us go so far," he said. "Then we shall see." He passed through, followed by Gourel, whom he told to leave the first door open, and walked to the other door, resolving within himself to go no farther. But this second door was shut, and though the lock seemed to work, he could not succeed in opening it. "The door is bolted," he said. "Let us make no noise and go back." The more so as, outside, by remembering the position of the tunnel, we can fix the line along which to look for the other outlet. They therefore retraced their steps to the first door, when Gourel, who was walking ahead, gave an exclamation of surprise. "Why, it's closed, ... How is that? When I told you to leave it open." "I did leave it open, Chief, but the door must have fallen back of its own weight." "Impossible! We should have heard the sound." "Then, ... Then? I don't know." He went up to the door. "Let's see. There's a key. Does it turn?" "Yes, it turns. But there seems to be a bolt on the other side." "Who can have fastened it?" "They, of course. Behind our backs. Perhaps they have another tunnel that runs above this one alongside of it. Or else they were waiting in that empty house. In any case, we're caught in a trap." He grew angry with the lock, thrust his knife into the chink of the door, tried every means, and then, in a moment of weariness, said, "There's nothing to be done." "What, Chief? Nothing to be done? In that case, we're diddled." "I dare say," said Monsieur Lenormand. They returned to the other door, and came back again to the first. Both were solid, made of hard wood, strengthened with cross beams. In short, indestructible. "We should want a hatchet," said the chief of the detective service, "or at the very least, a serious implement, a knife even, with which we might try to cut away the place where the bolt is most likely to be, and we have nothing." He was seized with a sudden fit of rage, and flung himself upon the obstacle, as though he hoped to do away with it. Then, powerless, beaten, he said to Gourel, "Listen, we'll look into this in an hour or 2. I am tired out. I am going to sleep. Keep watch so long, and if they come and attack us—" "Ah, if they come, we shall be saved, Chief!" cried Gourel, who would have been relieved by a fight, however great the odds. Monsieur Lenormand lay down on the ground. In a minute he was asleep. When he woke up, he remained for some seconds undecided, not understanding. And he also asked himself what sort of pain it was that was tormenting him. "Gourel!" he called. "Come, Gourel!" Obtaining no reply, he pressed the spring of his lantern and saw Gourel lying beside him, sound asleep. "What on earth can this pain be?" he thought. "Regular twitchings. Oh, why, of course I am hungry, that's all. I'm starving. What can the time be?" His watch marked 20 minutes past 7, but he remembered that he had not wound it up. Gourel's watch was not going either. Gourel had awoke under the action of the same inward pangs, which made them think that the breakfast hour must be long past, and that they had already slept for a part of the day. "My legs are quite numbed," said Gourel, "and my feet feel as if they were on ice. What a funny sensation." He bent down to rub them and went on. "Why, it's not on ice that my feet were, but in water. Look, Chief, there's a regular pool near the first door. Soaked through," Monsieur Lenormand replied. "We'll go back to the second door. You can dry yourself." "But what are you doing, Chief? Do you think I'm going to allow myself to be buried alive in this vault? Not if I know it. I haven't reached the age. As the 2 doors are closed, let us try to pass through the walls." One by one he loosened the stones that stood out at the height of his hand, in the hope of contriving another gallery that would slope upwards to the level of the soil. But the work was long and painful, for in this part of the tunnel, as he perceived, the stones were cemented. "Chief! Chief!" stammered Gourel in a stifled voice. "Well?" "You are standing with your feet in the water." "Nonsense. Why, so I am. Well, it can't be helped. I'll dry them in the sun. But don't you see? What? Why, it's rising, Chief, it's rising, ... Quote, what's rising? The water, ... Quote. Monsieur Lenormand felt a shudder pass over his skin. He suddenly understood. It was not a casual trickling through, as he had thought, but a carefully prepared flood, mechanically, irresistibly produced by some infernal system. Oh, the scoundrel, he snarled. If ever I lay hands on him! ... Quote. Yes, yes, Chief, but we must first get out of this. And as far as I can see, Gurel seemed completely prostrated, incapable of having an idea, of proposing a plan. Monsieur Lenormand knelt down on the ground and measured the rate at which the water was rising. A quarter or thereabouts of the first door was covered, and the water was halfway toward the second door. The progress is slow but uninterrupted, he said. In a few hours it will be over our heads. But this is terrible, Chief, it's horrible, moaned Gurel. Oh, look here, don't come boring me with your lamentations, do you understand? Cry if it amuses you, but don't let me hear you. It's the hunger that weakens me, Chief. My brain's going round. Bite your fist, as Gurel said. The position was terrible, and if Monsieur Lenormand had had less energy, he would have abandoned the vain struggle. What was to be done? It was no use hoping that Ribeira would have the charity to let them out. It was no use either hoping that the brothers Dudeville would rescue them, for the inspectors did not know of the existence of the tunnel. So no hope remained, no hope but that of an impossible miracle. Come, come, said Monsieur Lenormand, this is too silly. We're not going to kick the bucket here. Hang it all, there must be something. Show me a light, Gurel. Flattening himself against the second door, he examined it from top to bottom, in every corner. There was an enormous bolt on that side, just as there probably was on the other. He unfastened the screws with the blade of his knife, and the bolt came off in his hand. And what next? Asked Gurel. What next? He echoed. Well, this bolt is made of iron, pretty long and very nearly pointed. Certainly it's not as good as a pickaxe, but it's better than nothing, and... Without finishing his sentence, he drove the implement into the side wall of the tunnel, a little in front of the pillar of masonry that supported the hinges of the door. As he expected, once he had passed the first layer of cement and stones, he found soft earth. To work, he cried. Certainly, Chief, but would you explain? It's quite simple. I want to dig round this pillar a passage, 3 or 4 yards long, which will join the tunnel on the other side of the door and allow us to escape. But it will take us hours, and meanwhile the water is rising. Show me a light, Gurel. In 20 minutes, or half an hour at most, it will have reached our feet. Show me a light, Gurel. M. Lenormand's idea was correct, and, with some little exertion, by pulling the earth, which he first loosened with his implement, towards him and making it fall into the tunnel, he was not long in digging a hole large enough to slip into. It's my turn, Chief, said Gurel. Aha! You're returning to life, I see. Well, fire away. You have only to follow the shape of the pillar. At that moment, the water was up to their ankles. Would they have time to complete the work begun? It became more difficult as they went on, for the earth which they disturbed was in their way, and, lying flat on their stomachs in the passage, they were obliged at every instant to remove the rubbish that obstructed them. After 2 hours, the work was perhaps 3/4 through, but the water now covered their legs. Another hour, and it would reach the opening of the hole which they were digging. And that would mean the end. Gurel, who was exhausted by the want of food, and who was too stout to move with any freedom in that ever narrower passage, had had to give up. He no longer stirred, trembling with anguish at feeling that icy water which was gradually swallowing him up. As for Monsieur Lenormand, he worked on with indefatigable ardor. It was a terrible job this ant's work performed in the stifling darkness. His hands were bleeding. He was fainting with hunger. The insufficiency of the air hampered his breathing, and, from time to time, Gurel's sighs reminded him of the awful danger that threatened him at the bottom of his hole. But nothing could discourage him, for now he again found opposite him those cemented stones which formed the side wall of the gallery. It was the most difficult part, but the end was at hand. "It's rising!" cried Gurel in a choking voice. "It's rising!" Monsieur Lenormand redoubled his efforts. Suddenly the stem of the bolt which he was using leapt out into space. The passage was dug. He had now only to widen it, which became much easier once he was able to shoot the materials in front of him. Gurel, mad with terror, was howling like a dying beast. Monsieur Lenormand paid no attention to him. Safety was at hand. Nevertheless, he had a few seconds of anxiety when he perceived, by the sound of the materials falling, that this part of the tunnel was also under water, which was natural, as the door did not form a sufficiently tight-fitting barrier. But what did it matter? The outlet was free. One last effort he passed through. "Come, Gurel," he cried, returning to fetch his companion. He dragged him, half dead, by the wrists. "Come along, booby. Pull yourself together. We are saved." "Do you really think so, Chief? The water's up to our chests." "Never mind, as long as it's not over our mouths. Where's your lantern?" "It's not working." "No matter." He gave an exclamation of delight. "One step, 2 steps, a staircase. At last!" They emerged from the water, that accursed water which had almost swallowed them up. And it was a delicious sensation, a release that sent up their spirits. "Stop!" said Monsieur Lenormand. His head had knocked against something. With arms outstretched, he pushed against the obstacle, which yielded at once. It was the flap of a trap door. And when this trap door was opened, he found himself in a cellar into which the light of a fine night filtered through an air hole. He threw back the flap and climbed the last treads. Then a veil fell over his eyes. Arms seized upon him. He felt himself, as it were, wrapped in a sheet, in a sort of sack, and then fastened with cords. "Now for the other one," said a voice. The same operation must have been performed on Gurel, and the same voice said, "If they call out, kill them at once." "Have you your dagger?" "Yes." "Come along. You too. Take this one. You too. That one. No light. And no noise either. It would be a serious matter. They've been searching the garden next door since this morning. There are 10 or 15 of them knocking about. Go back to the house, Gertrude, and if the least thing happens, telephone to me in Paris." Monsieur Lenormand felt that he was being lifted up and carried, and, a moment after, that he was in the open air. "Bring the cart nearer," said a voice. Monsieur Lenormand heard the sound of a horse and cart. He was laid out on some boards. Gurel was hoisted up beside him. The horse started at a trot. The drive lasted about half an hour. "Halt!" commanded the voice. "Lift them out. Here, driver, turn the cart so that the tail touches the parapet of the bridge. Good. No boats on the river? Sure? Then let's waste no time. Oh, have you fastened some stones to them?" "Yes, paving stones." "Right away, then. Commend your soul to God, M. Lenormand, and pray for me, Parbury-Ribeira, that are known by the name of Baron Altenheim. Are you ready? All right. Well, here's wishing you a pleasant journey, Monsieur Lenormand." Monsieur Lenormand was placed on the parapet. Someone gave him a push. He felt himself falling into space, and he still heard the voice chuckling. "A pleasant journey!" 10 seconds later, it was Sergeant Gurel's turn. Chapter 7. Parbury-Ribeira-Altenheim. The girls were playing in the garden, under the supervision of Mademoiselle Charlotte, Genevieve's new assistant. Madame Ernemont came out, distributed some cakes among them, and then went back to the room which served as a drawing-room and parlor in one, sat down before a writing desk, and began to arrange her papers and account books. Suddenly, she felt the presence of a stranger in the room. She turned round in alarm. "You!" she cried. "Where have you come from? How did you get in?" "Hush!" said Prince Sernine. "Listen to me, and do not let us waste a minute. Genevieve? Calling on Mrs. Kesselbach. When will she be here? Not before an hour. Then I will let the brothers Dudeville come. I have an appointment with them. How is Genevieve? Very well. How often has she seen Pierre Leduc since I went away 10 days ago? 3 times, and she is to meet him today at Mrs. Kesselbach's, to whom she introduced him as you said she must. Only I may as well tell you that I don't think much of this Pierre Leduc of yours. Genevieve would do better to find some good fellow in her own class of life. For instance, there's the schoolmaster." "You're mad! Genevieve marry a schoolmaster. Oh, if you considered Genevieve's happiness first." "Shut up, Victoire. You're boring me with your cackle. I have no time to waste on sentiment. I'm playing a game of chess, and I move my men without troubling about what they think. When I have won the game, I will go into the question whether the knight, Pierre Leduc, and the queen, Genevieve, have a heart or not." She interrupted him. "Did you hear? A whistle. It's the 2 Dudevilles. Go and bring them in, and then leave us." As soon as the 2 brothers were in the room, he questioned them with his usual precision. "I know what the newspapers have said about the disappearance of Lenormand and Gourel. Do you know any more?" "No. The deputy chief, Monsieur Weber, has taken the case in hand. We have been searching the garden of the House of Retreat for the past week, and nobody is able to explain how they can have disappeared. The whole force is in a flutter. No one has ever seen the like. A chief of the detective service disappearing without leaving a trace behind him. The 2 maids? Gertrude has gone. She is being looked for. Her sister Suzanne? M. Faber and Monsieur Formerie have questioned her. There is nothing against her. Is that all you have to tell me? Oh no, there are other things. All the things which we did not tell the papers." They then described the incidents that had marked Monsieur Lenormand's last 2 days. The night visit of the 2 ruffians to Pierre Leduc's villa. Next day, Ribera's attempt to kidnap Genevieve and the chase through the St. Cucufa woods. Old Steinweg's arrival, his examination at the detective office in Mrs. Kesselbach's presence, his escape from the Palais. "And no one knows these details except yourselves?" "Dizzy knows about the Steinweg incident. He told us of it." "And they still trust you at the prefecture of police?" "So much so that they employ us openly. Monsieur Weber swears by us." "Come," said the prince, "all is not lost. If Monsieur Lenormand has committed an imprudence that has cost him his life, as I suppose he did, at any rate he performed some good work first, and we have only to continue it. The enemy has the start of us, but we will catch him up." "It won't be an easy job, Governor." "Why not? It is only a matter of finding old Steinweg again, for the answer to the riddle is in his hands." "Yes, but where has Ribera got old Steinweg tucked away?" "At his own place, of course." "Then we should have to know where Ribera hangs out." "Well, of course." He dismissed them and went to the House of Retreat. Motor cars were awaiting outside the door, and 2 men were walking up and down, as though mounting guard. In the garden, near Mrs. Kesselbach's house, he saw Genevieve sitting on a bench with Pierre Leduc and a thick-set gentleman wearing a single eyeglass. The 3 were talking, and none of them saw him. But several people came out of the house: Monsieur Formerie, Monsieur Weber, a magistrate's clerk, and 2 inspectors. Genevieve went indoors, and the gentleman with the eyeglass went up and spoke to the examining magistrate and the deputy chief of the detective service, and walked away with them slowly. Sernine came beside the bench where Pierre Leduc was sitting and whispered, "Don't move, Pierre Leduc. It's I. You. Quote. It was the 3rd time that the young man saw Sernine since the awful night at Versailles, and each time it upset him. "Tell me, who is the fellow with the eyeglass?" Pierre Leduc turned pale and jabbered. Sernine pinched his arm. "Answer me, confound it! Who is he?" "Baron Altenheim." "Where does he come from?" "He was a friend of Mr. Kesselbach's. He arrived from Austria 6 days ago, and placed himself at Mrs. Kesselbach's disposal." The police authorities had meanwhile gone out of the garden, Baron Altenheim also. The prince rose and, turning towards the Pavillon de l'Impératrice, continued. "Has the Baron asked you many questions?" "Yes, a great many. He is interested in my case. He wants to help me find my family. He appealed to my childhood memories." "And what did you say?" "Nothing. Because I know nothing." "What memories have I? You put me in another's place, and I don't even know who that other is." "No more do I," chuckled the prince. "And that's just what makes your case so quaint. Oh, it's all very well for you to laugh. You're always laughing. But I'm beginning to have enough of it. I'm mixed up in a heap of nasty matters, to say nothing of the danger which I run in pretending to be somebody that I am not." "What do you mean that you are not? You're quite as much a duke as I am a prince, perhaps even more so. Besides, if you're not a duke, hurry up and become one. Hang it all, Genevieve can't marry anyone but a duke. Look at her. Isn't she worth selling your soul for?" He did not even look at Leduc, not caring what he thought. They had reached the house by this time, and Genevieve appeared at the foot of the steps, comely and smiling. "So you have returned," she said to the prince. "Ah, that's a good thing. I am so glad. Do you want to see Dolores?" After a moment, she showed him into Mrs. Kesselbach's room. The prince was taken aback. Dolores was paler still and thinner than on the day when he saw her last. Lying on a sofa, wrapped up in white stuffs, she looked like one of those sick people who have ceased to struggle against death. As for her, she had ceased to struggle against life, against the fate that was overwhelming her with its blows. Sernine gazed at her with deep pity, and with an emotion which he did not strive to conceal. She thanked him for the sympathy which he showed her. She also spoke of Baron Altenheim in friendly terms. "Did you know him before?" he asked. "Yes, by name, and through his intimacy with my husband. I have met an Altenheim who lives in the Rue de Rivoli." "Do you think it's the same?" "Oh, no, this one lives in... As a matter of fact, I don't quite know. He gave me his address, but I can't say that I remember it." After a few minutes' conversation, Sernine took his leave. Genevieve was waiting for him in the hall. "I want to speak to you," she said eagerly, "on a serious matter. Did you see him?" "Whom?" "Baron Altenheim." "But that's not his name. Or at least, he has another. I recognized him. He does not know it." She dragged him out of doors and walked on in great excitement. "Calm yourself, Genevieve. He's the man who tried to carry me off. But for that poor M. Lenormand, I should have been done for... Come, you must know, for you know everything." "Then his real name is... Ribera. Are you sure?" It was no use his changing his appearance, his accent, his manner. I knew him at once, by the horror with which he inspires me. But I said nothing. Until you returned. "You said nothing to Mrs. Kesselbach either?" "No. She seemed so happy at meeting a friend of her husband's." "But you will speak to her about it, will you not? You will protect her. I don't know what he is preparing against her, against myself. Now that Monsieur Lenormand is no longer there, he has nothing to fear. He does as he pleases. Who can unmask him?" "I can. I will be responsible for everything. But not a word to anybody." They had reached the porter's lodge. The gate was opened. The prince said, "Goodbye, Genevieve, and be quite easy in your mind. I am there." He shut the gate, turned round, and gave a slight start. Opposite him stood the man with the eyeglass, Baron Altenheim, with his head held well up, his broad shoulders, his powerful frame. They looked at each other for 2 or 3 seconds, in silence. The Baron smiled. Then the Baron said, "I was waiting for you, Lupin." For all his self-mastery, Sernine felt a thrill pass over him. He had come to unmask his adversary, and his adversary had unmasked him at the first onset. And, at the same time, the adversary was accepting the contest boldly, brazenly, as though he felt sure of victory. It was a swaggering thing to do, and gave evidence of no small amount of pluck. The two men, violently hostile one to the other, took each other's measure with their eyes. "And what then?" asked Sernine. "What then? Don't you think we have occasion for a meeting?" Why? I want to talk to you. What day will suit you? Tomorrow. Let us lunch together at a restaurant. Why not at your place? You don't know my address. Yes, I do. With a swift movement, the prince pulled out a newspaper protruding from Altenheim's pocket, a paper still in its addressed wrapper, and said, Number 29, Via Dupont. Well played, said the other. Then we'll say, tomorrow, at my place. Tomorrow at your place. At what time? 1 o'clock. I shall be there. Goodbye. They were about to walk away. Altenheim stopped. Oh, one word more, Prince. Bring a weapon with you. Why? I keep 4 men-servants, and you will be alone. I have my fists, said Sernine. We shall be on even terms. He turned his back on him, and then, calling him back, Oh, one word more, Baron. Engage 4 more servants. Why? I have thought it over. I shall bring my whip. At 1 o'clock the next day, precisely, a horseman rode through the gate of the so-called Villa Dupont, a peaceful, countrified private road, the only entrance to which is in the Rue Pergolese, close to the Avenue du Bois. It is lined with gardens and handsome private houses, and, right at the end, it is closed by a sort of little park containing a large old house, behind which runs the Paris Circular Railway. It was here, at number 29, that Baron Altenheim lived. Sernine flung the reins of his horse to a groom whom he had sent on ahead, and said, Bring him back at 2:30. He rang the bell. The garden gate opened, and he walked to the front door steps, where he was awaited by 2 tall men in livery, who ushered him into an immense, cold, stone hall, devoid of any ornament. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud, and, great and indomitable as his courage was, he nevertheless underwent an unpleasant sensation at feeling himself alone, surrounded by enemies in that isolated prison. Say, Prince Sernine! The drawing-room was near, and he was shown straight in. Ah, there you are, my dear prince, said the Baron, coming toward him. Well, will you believe? Dominique, lunch in 20 minutes. Until then, don't let us be interrupted. Will you believe, my dear prince, that I hardly expected to see you? Oh, really? Why? Well, your declaration of war this morning is so plain that an interview becomes superfluous. My declaration of war? The Baron unfolded a copy of the Grand Journal and pointed to a paragraph which ran as follows. We are authoritatively informed that Monsieur Lenormand's disappearance has roused Arsène Lupin into taking action. After a brief enquiry and following on his proposal to clear up the Kesselbach case, Arsène Lupin has decided that he will find Monsieur Lenormand, alive or dead, and that he will deliver the author or authors of that heinous series of crimes to justice. This authoritative pronouncement comes from you, my dear prince, of course? Yes, it comes from me. Therefore, I was right. It means war. Yes. Altenheim gave Sernine a chair, sat down himself, and said, in a conciliatory tone, Well, no, I cannot allow that. It is impossible that 2 men like ourselves should fight and injure each other. We have only to come to an explanation, to seek the means. You and I were made to understand each other. I think, on the contrary, that 2 men like ourselves are not made to understand each other. The Baron suppressed a movement of impatience and continued, Listen to me, Lupin. By the way, do you mind my calling you Lupin? What shall I call you? Altenheim, Ribera, or Parbury? Oh ho, I see that you are even better posted than I thought. Hang it all, but you're jolly smart. All the more reason why we should agree. And bending toward him, Listen, Lupin, and ponder my words well. I have weighed them carefully, everyone. Look here, we 2 are evenly matched. Does that make you smile? You are wrong. It may be that you possess resources which I do not, but I have others of which you know nothing. Moreover, as you are aware, I have few scruples, some skill and a capacity for changing my personality, which an expert like yourself ought to appreciate. In short, the 2 adversaries are each as good as the other, but one question remains unanswered. Why are we adversaries? We are pursuing the same object, you will say? And what then? Do you know what will come of our rivalry? Each of us will paralyze the efforts and destroy the work of the other, and we shall both miss our aim. And for whose benefit? Some Lenormand or other? A third rogue? It's really too silly. It's really too silly, as you say, Cernine admitted. But there is a remedy. What is that? For you to withdraw. Don't chaff. I am serious. The proposal which I am going to make is not one to be rejected without examination. Here it is, in 2 words. Let's be partners. I say, of course, each of us will continue free where his own affairs are concerned. But, for the business in question, let us combine our efforts. Does that suit you? Hand in hand and share alike. What do you bring? I? Yes, you know what I'm worth. I've delivered my proofs. In the alliance which you are proposing, you know the figure, so to speak, of my marriage portion. What's yours? Steinweg. That's not much. It's immense. Through Steinweg, we learn the truth about Pierre le Duc. Through Steinweg, we get to know what the famous Kesselbach plan is all about. Cernine burst out laughing. And you need me for that? I don't understand. Come, old chap, your offer is childish. You have Steinweg in your hands. If you wish for my collaboration, it is because you have not succeeded in making him speak. But for that fact, you would do without my services. Well, what of it? I refuse. The 2 men stood up to each other once more, violent and implacable. I refuse, said Cernine. Lupin requires nobody in order to act. I am one of those who walk alone. If you were my equal, as you pretend, the idea of a partnership would never have entered your head. The man who has the stature of a leader commands. Union implies obedience. I do not obey. You refuse? You refuse? Repeated Altenheim, turning pale under the insult. All that I can do for you, old chap, is to offer you a place in my band. You'll be a private soldier to begin with. Under my orders you shall see how a general wins a battle, and how he pockets the booty, by himself and for himself. Does that suit you, Tommy? Altenheim was beside himself with fury. He gnashed his teeth. You are making a mistake, Lupin, he mumbled. You are making a mistake. I don't want anybody either, and this business gives me no more difficulty than plenty of others which I have pulled off. What I said was said in order to effect our object more quickly and without inconveniencing each other. You're not inconveniencing me, said Lupin scornfully. Look here, if we don't combine, only one of us will succeed. That's good enough for me. And he will only succeed by passing over the other's body. Are you prepared for that sort of duel, Lupin? A duel to the death, do you understand? The knife is a method which you despise. But suppose you received one, Lupin, right in the throat. Aha! So when all is said, that's what you propose? No, I am not very fond of shedding blood. Look at my fists. I strike, and my man falls. I have special blows of my own. But the other one kills. Remember, the little wound in the throat. Ah, Lupin, beware of him. Beware of that one. He is terrible. He is implacable. Nothing stops him. He spoke these words in a low voice, and with such excitement that Cernine shuddered at the hideous thought of the unknown murderer. Baron, he sneered, one would think you were afraid of your accomplice. I am afraid for the others, for those who bar our road, for you, Lupin. Accept, or you are lost. I shall act myself if necessary. The goal is too near. I have my hand on it. Get out of my way, Lupin. He was all energy and exasperated will. He spoke forcibly and so brutally that he seemed ready to strike his enemy then and there. Cernine shrugged his shoulders. Lord, how hungry I am, he said, yawning. What a time to lunch at. The door opened. Lunch is served, sir, said the butler. Ah, that's good hearing. In the doorway, Altenheim caught Sernine by the arm, and, disregarding the servant's presence, "If you take my advice, accept. This is a serious moment in your life, and you will do better. I swear to you, you will do better to accept." "Caviar!" cried Sernine. "Now that's too sweet of you. You remembered that you were entertaining a Russian prince." They sat down facing each other, with the Baron's greyhound, a large animal with long silver hair, between them. "Let me introduce Sirius, my most faithful friend, a fellow countryman," said Sernine. "I shall never forget the one which the Tsar was good enough to give me when I had the honor to save his life." "Ah, you had that honor. A terrorist conspiracy, no doubt." "Yes, a conspiracy got up by myself. You must know, this dog, its name, by the way, was Sebastopol." The lunch continued merrily. Altenheim had recovered his good humor, and the two men vied with each other in wit and politeness. Sernine told anecdotes which the Baron capped with others, and it was a succession of stories of hunting, sport, and travel, in which the oldest names in Europe were constantly cropping up: Spanish grandees, English lords, Hungarian Magyars, Austrian archdukes. "Ah," said Sernine, "what a fine profession is ours. It brings us into touch with all the best people." "Here, Sirius, a bit of this truffled chicken." The dog did not take his eyes off him and snapped at everything that Sernine gave it. "A glass of Chambertin, Prince?" "With pleasure, Baron." "I can recommend it. It comes from King Leopold's cellar." "A present?" "Yes, a present I made myself." "It's delicious. What a bouquet. With this pâté de foie gras, it's simply wonderful. I must congratulate you, Baron. You have a first-rate chef." "My chef is a woman cook, Prince. I bribed her with untold gold to leave Levrault, the socialist deputy. I say, try this hot chocolate ice, and let me call your special attention to the little dry cakes that go with it. They're an invention of genius, those cakes." "The shape is charming in any case," said Sernine, helping himself. "If they taste as good as they look. Here, Sirius, you're sure to like this. Locusta herself could not have done better." He took one of the cakes and gave it to the dog. Sirius swallowed it at a gulp, stood motionless for 2 or 3 seconds, as though dazed, then turned in a circle and fell to the floor dead. Sernine started back from his chair, lest one of the footmen should fall upon him unawares. Then he burst out laughing. "Look here, Baron, next time you want to poison one of your friends, try to steady your voice and to keep your hands from shaking. Otherwise people suspect you. But I thought you disliked murder?" "With the knife, yes," said Altenheim, quite unperturbed. "But I have always had a wish to poison someone. I wanted to see what it was like. By Jove, old chap, you choose your subjects well. A Russian prince." He walked up to Altenheim and, in a confidential tone, said, "Do you know what would have happened if you had succeeded? That is to say, if my friends had not seen me return at 3 o'clock at the latest? Well, at 3:30, the prefect of police would have known exactly all that there was to know about the so-called Baron Altenheim, and the said Baron would have been copped before the day was out and clapped into jail." "Pooh," said Altenheim. "Prison one escapes from, whereas one does not come back from the kingdom where I was sending you. True, but you would have to send me there first, and that's not so easy. I only wanted a mouthful of one of those cakes. Are you quite sure? Try. One thing's certain, my lad. You haven't the stuff yet which great adventurers are made of, and I doubt if you'll ever have it, considering the sort of traps you lay for me. A man who thinks himself worthy of leading the life which you and I have the honor to lead must also be fit to lead it, and for that must be prepared for every eventuality. He must even be prepared not to die if some ragamuffin or other tries to poison him, an undaunted soul in an unassailable body. That is the ideal which he must set before himself and attain. Try away, old chap. As for me, I am undaunted and unassailable. Remember King Mithridates." He went back to his chair. "Let's finish our lunch. But as I like proving the virtues to which I lay claim, and as, on the other hand, I don't want to hurt your cook's feelings, Just pass me that plate of cakes." He took one of them, broke it in two, and held out one half to the Baron. "Eat that!" The other gave a movement of recoil. "Funk," said Sernine. And, before the wondering eyes of the Baron and his satellites, he began to eat the first and then the second half of the cake, quietly, conscientiously, as a man eats a dainty of which he would hate to miss the smallest morsel. They met again. That same evening, Prince Sernine invited Baron Altenheim to dinner at the Cabaret Vatel, with a party consisting of a poet, a musician, a financier, and two pretty actresses, members of the Théâtre Français. The next day they lunched together in the Bois, and at night they met at the opera. They saw each other every day for a week. One would have thought that they could not do without each other, and that they were united by a great friendship, built up of mutual confidence, sympathy, and esteem. They had a capital time, drinking good wine, smoking excellent cigars, and laughing like two madmen. In reality, they were watching each other fiercely. Mortal enemies, separated by a merciless hatred, each feeling sure of winning and longing for victory with an unbridled will, they waited for the propitious moment, Altenheim to do away with Sernine, and Sernine to hurl Altenheim into the pit which he was digging for him. Each knew that the catastrophe could not be long delayed. One or other of them must meet with his doom, and it was a question of hours or, at most, of days. It was an exciting tragedy, and one of which a man like Sernine was bound to relish the strange and powerful zest. To know your adversary and to live by his side. To feel that death is waiting for you at the least false step, at the least act of thoughtlessness. What a joy, what a delight. One evening, they were alone together in the garden of the Rue Cambon Club, to which Altenheim also belonged. It was the hour before dusk, in the month of June, at which men begin to dine before the members come in for the evening's card play. They were strolling round a little lawn, along which ran a wall lined with shrubs. Beyond the shrubs was a small door. Suddenly, while Altenheim was speaking, Sernine received the impression that his voice became less steady, that it was almost trembling. He watched him out of the corner of his eye. Altenheim had his hand in the pocket of his jacket, and Sernine saw that hand, through the cloth, clutch the handle of a dagger, hesitating, wavering, resolute and weak by turns. Oh, exquisite moment! Was he going to strike? Which would gain the day? The timid instinct that dare not, or the conscious will, intense upon the act of killing? His chest flung out, his arms behind his back, Sernine waited, with alternate thrills of pleasure and of pain. The Baron had ceased talking, and they now walked on in silence, side by side. "Well, why don't you strike?" cried the prince impatiently. He had stopped and, turning to his companion, "Strike," he said. "This is the time, or never. There is no one to see you. You can slip out through that little door. The key happens to be hanging on the wall. And goodbye, Baron, unseen and unknown. But, of course, all this was arranged. You brought me here. And you're hesitating. Why on earth don't you strike?" He looked him straight in the eyes. The other was livid, quivering with impotent strength. "You milksop!" Sernine sneered. "I shall never make anything of you. Shall I tell you the truth? Well, you're afraid of me. Yes, old chap, you never feel quite sure what may happen to you when you're face to face with me. You want to act, whereas it's my acts, my possible acts that govern the situation. No, it's quite clear that you're not the man yet to put out my star." He had not finished speaking when he felt himself seized round the throat and dragged backward. Someone hiding in the shrubbery near the little door had caught him by the head. He saw a hand raised, armed with a knife with a gleaming blade. The hand fell. The point of the knife caught him right in the throat. At the same moment, Altenheim sprang upon him to finish him off, and they rolled over into the flower borders. It was a matter of 20 or 30 seconds at most. Powerful and experienced wrestler as he was, Altenheim yielded almost immediately, uttering a cry of pain. Sernine rose and ran to the little door which had just closed upon a dark form. It was too late. He heard the key turn in the lock. He was unable to open it. "Ah, you scoundrel," he said. "The day on which I catch you will be the day on which I shed my first blood. That I swear to God." ... Quote. He went back, stooped, and picked up the pieces of the knife which had broken as it struck him. Altenheim was beginning to move. Sernine asked, "Well, Baron, feeling better? You didn't know that blow, eh? It's what I call the direct blow in the solar plexus. That is to say, it snuffs out your vital sun like a candle. It's clean, quick, painless, and infallible. Whereas a blow with a dagger? Pooh! A man has only to wear a little steel-wove gorget, as I do, and he can set the whole world at defiance, especially your little pal in black, seeing that he always strikes at the throat, the silly monster. Here, look at his favorite plaything. Smashed to atoms." He offered him his hand. "Come, get up, Baron. You shall dine with me. And do please remember the secret of my superiority, an undaunted soul in an unassailable body." He went back to the club rooms, reserved a table for two, sat down on a sofa, and while waiting for dinner, soliloquized under his breath, "It's certainly an amusing game, but it's becoming dangerous. I must get it over. Otherwise those beggars will send me to paradise earlier than I want to go. The nuisance is that I can't do anything before I find old Steinweg, for, when all is said, old Steinweg is the only interesting factor in the whole business, and my one reason for sticking to the Baron is that I keep on hoping to pick up some clue or other. What the devil have they done with him? Altenheim is in daily communication with him. That is beyond a doubt. It is equally beyond a doubt that he is doing his utmost to drag out of him what he knows about the Kesselbach scheme. But where does he see him? Where's he got him shut up? With friends? In his own house? At 29? Villa Dupont? He reflected for some time, then lit a cigarette, took 3 puffs at it, and threw it away. This was evidently a signal, for 2 young men came and sat down beside him. He did not seem to know them, but he conversed with them by stealth. It was the brothers Dudeville, got up that day like men of fashion. "What is it, Governor?" "Take 6 of our men, go to 29 Villa Dupont, and make your way in." "The devil! How?" "In the name of the law. Are you not detective inspectors? A search. But we haven't the right—" "Take it." "And the servants? If they resist?" "There are only 4 of them." "If they call out?" "They won't call out." "If Altenheim returns?" "He won't return before 10 o'clock. I'll see to it. That gives you 2 hours and a half, which is more than you require to explore the house from top to bottom. If you find old Steinweg, come and tell me." Baron Altenheim came up. Sernine went to meet him. "Let's have some dinner, shall we? That little incident in the garden has made me feel hungry. By the way, my dear Baron, I have a few bits of advice to give you." They sat down to table. After dinner, Sernine suggested a game of billiards. Altenheim accepted. When the game was over, they went to the baccarat room. The croupier was just shouting, "There are 50 louis in the bank. Any bids?" 100 louis, said Altenheim. Sernine looked at his watch. 10 o'clock. The Dudevilles had not returned. The search, therefore, had been fruitless. "Banco," he said. Altenheim sat down and dealt the cards. "I give." "No." 7. 6. "I lose," said Sernine. "Shall I double the stakes?" "Very well," said the Baron. He dealt out the cards. 8, said Sernine. 9, said the Baron, laying his cards down. Sernine turned on his heels, muttering, "That costs me 300 louis, but I don't mind. It fixes him here." 10 minutes later, his motor set him down in front of 29, Villa Dupont, and he found the Dudevilles and their men collected in the hall. "Have you hunted out the old boy?" "No." "Dash it! But he must be somewhere or other." "Where are the 4 servants?" "Over there, in the pantry, tied up, with the cook as well." "Good. I would as soon they did not see me." Go all you others. Jean, stay outside and keep watch. Jacques, show me over the house. He quickly ran through the cellar, the ground floor, the first and second floors, and the attic. He practically stopped nowhere, knowing that he would not discover in a few minutes what his men had not been able to discover in 3 hours. But he carefully noted the shape and the arrangement of the rooms, and looked for some little detail which would put him on the scent. When he had finished, he returned to a bedroom which Dudeville had told him was Altenheim's, and examined it attentively. "This will do," he said, raising a curtain that concealed a dark closet full of clothes. "From here I can see the whole of the room. But if the Baron searches the house, why should he? He will know that we have been here, through his servants. Yes, but he will never dream that one of us is putting up here for the night. He will think that the attempt failed, that is all, so I shall stay." "And how will you get out?" "Oh, that's asking me more than I can tell you. The great thing was to get in. Here I am, and here I stay. Go, Dudeville, and shut the doors as you go." He sat down on a little box at the back of the cupboard. 4 rows of hanging clothes protected him. Except in the case of a close investigation, he was evidently quite safe. 2 hours passed. He heard the dull sound of a horse's hoofs and the tinkling of a collar bell. A carriage stopped, the front door slammed, and almost immediately he heard voices, exclamations, a regular outcry that increased probably, as each of the prisoners was released from his gag. They are explaining the thing to him, he thought. The Baron must be in a tearing rage. He now understands the reason for my conduct at the club tonight, and sees that I have dished him nicely. Dished? That depends. After all, I haven't got Steinweg yet. That is the first thing that he will want to know. Did they get Steinweg? To find this out, he will go straight to the hiding place. If he goes up, it means that the hiding place is upstairs. If he goes down, then it is in the basement. He listened. The sound of voices continued in the rooms on the ground floor, but it did not seem as if anyone were moving. Altenheim must be cross-examining his confederates. It was half an hour before Sernine heard steps mounting the staircase. Then it must be upstairs, he said to himself. But why did they wait so long? Go to bed, all of you, said Altenheim's voice. The Baron entered his room with one of his men and shut the door. And I am going to bed too, Dominique. We should be no further if we sat arguing all night. My opinion is, said the other, that he came to fetch Steinweg. That is my opinion too, and that's why I'm really enjoying myself, seeing that Steinweg isn't here. But where is he, after all? What have you done with him? That's my secret, and you know I keep my secrets to myself. All that I can tell you is that he is in safe keeping, and that he won't get out before he has spoken. So the prince is sold? Sold is the word, and he has had to fork out to attain this fine result. Oh, I've had a good time tonight. Poor prince. For all that, said the other, we shall have to get rid of him. Make your mind easy, old man. That won't take long. Before a week's out, you shall have a present of a pocketbook made out of lupin skin. But let me go to bed now. I'm dropping with sleep. There was a sound of the door closing. Then Sernine heard the Baron push the bolt, empty his pockets, wind up his watch, and undress. He seemed in a gay mood, whistling and singing and even talking aloud. Yes, a lupin skin pocketbook in less than a week. In less than 4 days. Otherwise he'll eat us up, the bully. No matter, he missed his shot tonight. His calculation was right enough, though. Steinweg was bound to be here. Only, there you are. ... Quote. He got into bed and at once switched off the light. Sernine had come forward as far as the dividing curtain, which he now lifted slightly, and he saw the vague light of the night filtering through the windows, leaving the bed in profound darkness. He hesitated. Should he leap out upon the Baron, take him by the throat, and obtain from him by force and threats what he had not been able to obtain by craft? Absurd? Altenheim would never allow himself to be intimidated. "I say, he's snoring now," muttered Sernine. "Well, I'm off. At the worst, I shall have wasted a night." He did not go. He felt that it would be impossible for him to go, that he must wait, that chance might yet serve his turn. With infinite precautions, he took 4 or 5 coats and greatcoats from their hooks, laid them on the floor, made himself comfortable, and, with his back to the wall, went peacefully to sleep. The Baron was not an early riser. A clock outside was striking 9 when he got out of bed and rang for his servant. He read the letters which his man brought him, splashed about in his tub, dressed without saying a word, and sat down to his table to write, while Dominique was carefully hanging up the clothes of the previous day in the cupboard, and Sernine asking himself, with his fists ready to strike, "I wonder if I shall have to stave in this fellow's solar plexus." At 10 o'clock the Baron was ready. "Leave me," said he to the servant. "There's just this waistcoat." "Leave me, I say. Come back when I ring, not before." He shut the door himself, like a man who does not trust others, went to a table on which a telephone was standing, and took down the receiver. "Hullo? Put me on to Garches, please, mademoiselle. Very well, I'll wait till you ring me up." He sat down to the instrument. The telephone bell rang. "Hello?" said Altenheim. "Is that Garches?" "Yes, that's right. Give me number 38, please, mademoiselle." A few seconds later, in a lower voice, as low and as distinct as he could make it, he began. "Are you 38? It's I speaking. No useless words. Yesterday?" "Yes. You missed him in the garden." "Another time, of course, but the thing's becoming urgent." "He had the house searched last night. I'll tell you about it. Found nothing, of course. What? Hello. No, old Steinweg refuses to speak. Threats, promises, nothing's any good. Hello. Yes, of course. He sees that we can do nothing. We know just a part of the Kesselbach scheme and of the story of Pierre Leduc. He's the only one who has the answer to the riddle. Oh, he'll speak all right. That I'll answer for this very night, too. If not... What? Well, what can we do? Anything rather than let him escape. Do you want the prince to bag him from us? As for the prince, we shall have to cook his goose in 3 days from now. You have an idea? Yes, that's a good idea. Oh, excellent. I'll see to it. When shall we meet? Will Tuesday do? Right, you are. I'll come on Tuesday, at 2 o'clock. Goodbye. He replaced the receiver and went out. A few hours later, while the servants were at lunch, Prince Sernine strolled quietly out of the Villa du Pont, feeling rather faint in the head and weak in the knees, and, while making for the nearest restaurant, he thus summed up the situation. So, on Tuesday next, Altenheim and the Palace Hotel murderer have an appointment at Garches, in a house with the telephone number 38. On Tuesday, therefore, I shall hand over the 2 criminals to the police and set Monsieur Lenormand at liberty. In the evening it will be old Steinweg's turn, and I shall learn at last whether Pierre Leduc is the son of a pork butcher or not, and whether he will make a suitable husband for Geneviève. So be it. At 11 o'clock on Tuesday morning, Valenglay, the Prime Minister, sent for the Prefect of Police and M. Weber, the Deputy Chief of the Detective Service, and showed them an express letter which he had just received. Monsieur le Président du Conseil, knowing the interest which you take in Monsieur Lenormand, I am writing to inform you of certain facts which chance has revealed to me. M. Lenormand is locked up in the cellars of the Via des Glycines at Garches, near the House of Retreat. The ruffians of the Palace Hotel have resolved to murder him at 2 o'clock today. If the police require my assistance, they will find me at 1:30 in the garden of the House of Retreat, or at the garden house occupied by Mrs. Kesselbach, whose friend I have the honor to be. I am, Monsieur le Président du Conseil, Your obedient servant, Prince Sernine. This is an exceedingly grave matter, my dear Monsieur Weber, said Valanglais. I may add that we can have every confidence in the accuracy of Prince Sernine's statements. I have often met him at dinner. He is a serious, intelligent man. Will you allow me, Monsieur le Président, asked the deputy chief detective, to show you another letter which I also received this morning? About the same case? Yes. Let me see it. He took the letter and read, Sir, this is to inform you that Prince Paul Sernine, who calls himself Mrs. Kesselbach's friend, is really Arsène Lupin. One proof will be sufficient. Paul Sernine is the anagram of Arsène Lupin. Not a letter more, not a letter less. L. M. And M. Weber added, while Valanglais stood amazed, This time, our friend Lupin has found an adversary who is a match for him. While he denounces the other betrays him to us, and the fox is caught in the trap. What do you propose to do? Monsieur le Président, I shall take 200 men with me. Chapter 8. The Olive Green Frock-Coat. 12:15, in a restaurant near the Madeleine. The prince is at lunch. 2 young men sit down at the next table. He bows to them and begins to speak to them, as to friends whom he has met by chance. Are you going on the expedition, eh? Yes. How many men altogether? 6, I think. Each goes down by himself. We're to meet Monsieur Weber at 1:45, near the House of Retreat. Very well, I shall be there. What? Am I not leading the expedition? And isn't it my business to find M. Lenormand, seeing that I've announced it publicly? Then you believe that Monsieur Lenormand is not dead, Governor? I'm sure of it. Do you know anything? Yes, since yesterday I know for certain that Altenheim and his gang took Monsieur Lenormand and Gourel to the bridge at Bougival and heaved them overboard. Gourel sank, but Monsieur Lenormand managed to save himself. I shall furnish all the necessary proofs when the time comes. But then, if he's alive, why doesn't he show himself? Because he's not free. Is what you said true, then? Is he in the cellars of the Villa des Glycines? I have every reason to think so. But how do you know? What clue? ... Quote. That's my secret. I can tell you one thing. The revelation will be, what shall I say? Sensational. Have you finished? Yes. My car is behind the Madeleine. Join me there. At Garches, Sernine sent the motor away, and they walked to the path that led to Genevieve's school. There he stopped. Listen to me, lads. This is of the highest importance. You will ring at the House of Retreat. As inspectors, you have your right of entry, have you not? You will then go to the Pavillon Hortense, the empty one. There you will run down to the basement, and you will find an old shutter, which you have only to lift to see the opening of a tunnel, which I discovered lately, and which forms a direct communication with the Via des Glycines. It was by means of this that Gertrude and Baron Altenheim used to meet. And it was this way that Monsieur Lenormand passed, only to end by falling into the hands of his enemies. You think so, Governor? Yes, I think so. And now the point is this. You must go and make sure that the tunnel is exactly in the condition in which I left it last night, that the 2 doors which bar it are open, and that there is still, in a hole near the second door, a parcel wrapped in a piece of black cloth which I put there myself. Are we to undo the parcel? No, that's not necessary. It's a change of clothes. Go, and don't let yourselves be seen more than you can help. I will wait for you. 10 minutes later they were back. The 2 doors are open, said one of the Dudevilles. And the black cloth parcel? In its place near the second door. Capital! It is 1:25. Weber will be arriving with his champions. They are to watch the villa. They will surround it as soon as Altenheim is inside. I have arranged with Weber that I shall ring the bell, the door will be opened, and I shall have my foot inside the citadel. Once there, I have my plan. Come, I have an idea that we shall see some fun. And Sernine, after dismissing them, walked down the path to the school, soliloquizing as he went. All bodes well. The battle will be fought on the ground chosen by myself. I am bound to win. I shall get rid of my two adversaries, and I shall find myself alone, engaged in the Kesselbach case. Alone, with two whacking trump cards, Pierre Leduc and Steinweg, besides the king. That is to say, Bibi. Only there's one thing. What is Altenheim up to? Obviously, he has a plan of attack of his own. On which side does he mean to attack me? And how does it come that he has not attacked me yet? It's rather startling. Can he have denounced me to the police? He went along the little playground of the school. The pupils were at their lessons. He knocked at the door. "Ah, is that you?" said Madame Ernemont, opening the door. "So you have left Geneviève in Paris?" "For me to do that, Geneviève would have to be in Paris," he replied. "So she has been, seeing that you sent for her." "What's that?" he exclaimed, catching hold of her arm. "Why, you know better than I." "I know nothing. I know nothing." "Speak! ... Quote, didn't you write to Geneviève to meet you at the Gare Saint-Lazare? And did she go? Why, of course. You were to lunch together at the Hotel Ritz. The letter. Show me the letter." She went to fetch it and gave it to him. "But, wretched woman, couldn't you see that it was a forgery? The handwriting is a good imitation, but it's a forgery. Anyone can see that." He pressed his clenched hands to his temples with rage. "That's the move I was wondering about. Oh, the dirty scoundrel! He's attacking me through her. But how does he know? No, he does not know. He's tried it on twice now, and it's because of Geneviève, because he's taken a fancy to her. Oh, not that. Never. Listen, Victoire. Are you sure that she doesn't love him? Oh, I'm losing my head. Wait. I must think. This isn't the moment." He looked at his watch. 25 minutes to 2. I have time. Idiot that I am. Time to do what? How do I know where she is? He walked up and down like a madman, and his old nurse seemed astounded at seeing him so excited, with so little control of himself. "After all," she said, "there is nothing to prove that she did not suspect the trap at the last moment. Where could she be? I don't know. Perhaps at Mrs. Kesselbach's. That's true. You're right," he cried, filled with sudden hope. And he set out, at a run, for the house of retreat. On the way, near the gate, he met the brothers Doudeville, who were entering the porter's lodge. The lodge looked out on the road, and this enabled them to watch the approaches to the Via des Glycines. Without stopping, he went straight to the Pavillon de l'Impératrice, called Suzanne and told her to take him to Mrs. Kesselbach. "Geneviève?" he asked. "Geneviève? Yes. Hasn't she been here?" "No, not for several days." "But she is to come, is she not?" "Do you think so?" "Why, I'm certain of it." "Where do you think she is? Can you remember?" ... Quote, "It's no use my trying. I assure you that Geneviève and I had made no arrangement to see each other." And, suddenly alarmed, "But you're not anxious, are you? Has anything happened to Geneviève?" "No, nothing." He had already left the room. An idea had occurred to him. Suppose Altenheim were not at the Via des Glycines? Suppose the hour of the meeting had been changed? "I must see him," he said to himself. "I must, at all costs." And he ran along with a disordered air, indifferent to everything. But, in front of the lodge, he at once recovered his composure. He had caught sight of the deputy chief of the detective service, talking to the brothers Doudeville in the garden. Had he commanded his usual acute discernment, he would have perceived the little start which M. Weber gave as he approached, but he saw nothing. "M. Weber, I believe?" he asked. "Yes. To whom have I the honor?" ... Quote, "Prince Sernine." "Ah, very good. Monsieur le Préfet de Police has told me of the great service which you are doing us, monsieur. That service will not be complete until I have handed the ruffians over to you. That won't take long. I believe that one of those ruffians has just gone in, a powerful-looking man with a swarthy complexion. Yes, that's Baron Altenheim. Are your men here, M. Weber? Yes, concealed along the road, at 200 yards from this. Well, Monsieur Weber, it seems to me that you might collect them and bring them to this lodge. From here we will go to the villa. As Baron Altenheim knows me, I presume they will open the door to me and I will go in, with you. It is an excellent plan, said Monsieur Weber. I shall come back at once. He left the garden and walked down the road, in the opposite direction to the Via des Glycines. Sernine quickly took one of the brothers Dudeville by the arm. Run after him, Jacques. Keep him engaged, long enough for me to get inside the Glycines, and then delay the attack as long as you can. Invent pretexts. I shall want 10 minutes. Let the villa be surrounded, but not entered. And you, Jean, go and post yourself in the Pavillon Hortense, at the entrance to the underground passage. If the Baron tries to go out that way, break his head. The Dudevilles moved away, as ordered. The prince slipped out and ran to a tall gate, barred with iron, which was the entrance to the Glycines. Should he ring? There was no one in sight. With one bound, he leapt upon the gate, placing his foot on the lock, and, hanging on to the bars, getting a purchase with his knees and hoisting himself up with his wrists, he managed, at the risk of falling on the sharp points of the bars, to climb over the gate and jump down. He found a paved courtyard, which he crossed briskly, and mounted the steps of a pillared peristyle on which the windows looked out. These were all closed to the very top, with full shutters. As he stood, thinking how he should make his way into the house, the door was half opened, with a noise of iron that reminded him of the door in the Villa Dupont, and Altenheim appeared. "I say, Prince, is that the way you trespass on private property? I shall be forced to call in the gendarme, my dear fellow." Sernine caught him by the throat and, throwing him down on a bench, "Geneviève? Where is Geneviève? If you don't tell me what you've done with her, you villain." "Please observe," stammered the Baron, "that you are making it impossible for me to speak." Sernine released his hold of him. "To the point, and look sharp. Answer, Geneviève." "There is one thing," replied the Baron, "which is much more urgent, especially where fellows like you and me are concerned, and that is to feel oneself at home." And he carefully closed the front door, which he barricaded with bolts. Then, leading Sernine to the adjoining drawing-room, a room without furniture or curtains, he said, "Now I'm your man. What can I do for you, Prince?" "Geneviève? She is in perfect health." "Ah, so you confess?" "Of course. I may even tell you that your imprudence in this respect surprised me. Why didn't you take a few precautions? It was inevitable." "Enough! Where is she?" "You are not very polite." "Where is she?" "Between 4 walls, free." "Free?" "Yes, free to go from one wall to another." "Where? Where?" "Come, Prince. Do you think I should be fool enough to tell you the secret by which I hold you? You love the little girl." "Hold your tongue!" shouted Sernine, beside himself. "I forbid you." "What next? Is there anything to be ashamed of?" "I love her myself, and I have risked—" He did not complete his sentence. Frightened by the terrific anger of Sernine, a restrained, dumb anger that distorted the prince's features, they looked at each other for a long time, each of them seeking for the adversary's weak point. At last, Sernine stepped forward and, speaking very distinctly, like a man who is threatening rather than proposing a compact, "Listen to me," he said. "You remember the offer of partnership which you made me? The Kesselbach business for the 2 of us. We were to act together. We were to share the profits. I refused. Today I accept—" "Too late. Wait. I accept more than that. I give the whole business up. I shall take no further part in it. You shall have it all. If necessary, I'll help you. What is the condition? Tell me where Geneviève is. The Baron shrugged his shoulders. You're driveling, Lupin. I'm sorry for you. At your age. There was a fresh silence between the two enemies. A terrible silence. Then the Baron sneered. All the same, it's a holy joy to see you like that, sniveling and begging. I say, it seems to me that the private soldier is giving his general a sound beating. You ass, muttered Sernine. Prince, I shall send you my seconds this evening, if you are still in this world. You ass, repeated Sernine, with infinite contempt. You would rather settle the matter here and now? As you please, Prince. Your last hour has struck. You can commend your soul to God. You smile. That's a mistake. I have one immense advantage over you. I kill when it's necessary. You ass, said Sernine once more. He took out his watch. It is 2:00, Baron. You have only a few minutes left. At 2:05, 10 past, at the very latest, Monsieur Weber and half a dozen sturdy men, without a scruple amongst them, will lay hands on you. Don't you smile either. The outlet on which you're reckoning is discovered. I know it. It is guarded. So you are thoroughly caught. It means the scaffold, old chap. Altenheim turned livid. He stammered. You did this. You have had the infamy. The house is surrounded. The assault is at hand. Speak, and I will save you. How? The men watching the outlet in the Pavillon Hortense belong to me. I have only to give you a word for them, and you are saved. Speak. Altenheim reflected for a few seconds and seemed to hesitate, but suddenly, resolutely declared, This is all bluff. You would never have been simple enough to rush into the lion's mouth. You're forgetting, Geneviève. But for her, do you think I should be here? Speak! No. Very well, let us wait, said Sernine. A cigarette? Thank you. A few seconds passed. Do you hear? Asked Sernine. Yes, yes, said Altenheim, rising. Blows rang against the gate. Sernine observed. Not even the usual summons. No. Preliminaries. Your mind is still made up. More so than ever. You know that? With the tools they carry, they won't take long? If they were inside this room, I should still refuse. The gate yielded. They heard it creak on its hinges. To allow oneself to get nabbed, said Sernine, is admissible, but to hold out one's own hands to the handcuffs is too silly. Come, don't be obstinate. Speak, and bolt. And you? I shall remain. What have I to be afraid of? Look! The Baron pointed to a chink between the shutters. Sernine put his eye to it and jumped back with a start. Oh, you scoundrel! So you have denounced me too. It's not 10 men that Weber's bringing, but 50 men. 100, 200. The Baron laughed open-heartedly. And if there are so many of them, it's because they're after Lupin. That's obvious. Half a dozen would have been enough for me. You informed the police? Yes. What proof did you give? Your name, Paul Sernine, that is to say, Arsène Lupin. And you found that out all by yourself, did you? A thing which nobody else thought of. Nonsense. It was the other one. Admit it. He looked out through the chink. Swarms of policemen were spreading round the villa, and the blows were now sounding on the door. He must, however, think of one of two things. Either his escape, or else the execution of the plan which he had contrived. But to go away, even for a moment, meant leaving Altenheim, and who could guarantee that the Baron had not another outlet at his disposal to escape by? This thought paralyzed Sernine. The Baron free, the Baron at liberty to go back to Geneviève and torture her and make her subservient to his odious love. Thwarted in his designs, obliged to improvise a new plan on the very second, while subordinating everything to the danger which Genevieve was running. Sernine passed through a moment of cruel indecision. With his eyes fixed on the Baron's eyes, he would have liked to tear his secret from him and to go away, and he no longer even tried to convince him, so useless did all words seem to him. And, while pursuing his own thoughts, he asked himself what the Baron's thoughts could be, what his weapons, what his hope of safety. The hall door, though strongly bolted, though sheeted with iron, was beginning to give way. The two men stood behind that door, motionless. The sound of voices, the sense of words reached them. "You seem very sure of yourself," said Sernine. "I should think so," cried the other, suddenly tripping him to the floor and running away. Sernine sprang up at once, dived through a little door under the staircase, through which Altenheim had disappeared, and ran down the stone steps to the basement. A passage led to a large, low, almost pitch-dark room, where he found the Baron on his knees, lifting the flap of a trap-door. "Idiot!" shouted Sernine, flinging himself upon him. "You know that you will find my men at the end of this tunnel, and that they have orders to kill you like a dog, unless you have an outlet that joins on to this. Ah, there, of course, I've guessed it, and you imagine—" The fight was a desperate one. Altenheim, a real colossus, endowed with exceptional muscular force, had caught his adversary round the arms and body and was pressing him against his own chest, numbing his arms and trying to smother him. Of course, Sernine panted with difficulty. "Of course, that's well thought out. As long as I can't use my arms to break some part of you, you will have the advantage. Only, can you? ? He gave a shudder. The trap-door, which had closed again, and on the flap of which they were bearing down with all their weight, the trap-door seemed to move beneath them. He felt the efforts that were being made to raise it, and the Baron must have felt them too, for he desperately tried to shift the ground of the contest so that the trap-door might open. "It's the other one," thought Sernine, with the sort of unreasoning terror which that mysterious being caused him. "It's the other one. If he gets through, I'm done for." By dint of imperceptible movements, Altenheim had succeeded in shifting his own position, and he tried to drag his adversary after him. But Sernine clung with his legs to the Baron's legs and, at the same time, very gradually, tried to release one of his hands. Above their heads great blows resounded, like the blows of a battering ram. "I have 5 minutes," thought Sernine. "In 1 minute this fellow will have to—" Then, speaking aloud, "Look out, old chap, stand tight." He brought his 2 knees together with incredible force. The Baron yelled with a twisted thigh. Then Sernine, taking advantage of his adversary's pain, made an effort, freed his right arm, and seized him by the throat. "That's capital. We shall be more comfortable like this. No, it's not worthwhile getting out your knife. If you do, I'll wring your neck like a chicken's. You see, I'm polite and considerate. I'm not pressing too hard, just enough to keep you from even wanting to kick about." While speaking, he took from his pocket a very thin cord, and with one hand, with extreme skill, fastened his wrists. For that matter, the Baron, now at his last gasp, offered not the least resistance. With a few accurate movements, Sernine tied him up firmly. "How well you're behaving! What a good thing! I should hardly know you. Here, in case you were thinking of escaping, I have a roll of wire that will finish off my little work. The wrists first. Now the ankles. That's it. By Jove, how nice you look." The Baron had gradually come to himself again. He spluttered, "If you give me up, Genevieve will die." "Really? And how? Explain yourself." "She is locked up. No one knows where she is. If I'm put away, she will die of starvation." Sernine shuddered. He retorted, "Yes, but you will speak." "Never." "Yes, you will speak. Not now. It's too late. But tonight." He bent down over him and, whispering in his ear, said, "Listen, Altenheim, and understand what I say. You'll be caught presently. Tonight you'll sleep at the depot. That is fatal, irrevocable. I myself can do nothing to prevent it now. And tomorrow they will take you to the Santé. And later, you know where, well, I'm giving you one more chance of safety. Tonight, you understand, I shall come to your cell at the depot, and you shall tell me where Genevieve is. 2 hours later, if you have told the truth, you shall be free. If not, it means that you don't attach much value to your head." The other made no reply. Sernine stood up and listened. There was a great crash overhead. The entrance door yielded. Footsteps beat the flags of the hall and the floor of the drawing-room. Monsieur Weber and his men were searching. "Goodbye, Baron. Think it over until this evening. The prison cell is a good counselor." He pushed his prisoner aside so as to uncover the trap door, and lifted it. As he expected, there was no longer anyone below on the steps of the staircase. He went down, taking care to leave the trapdoor open behind him as though he meant to come back. There were 20 steps, at the bottom of which began the passage through which Monsieur Lenormand and Gourel had come in the opposite direction. He entered it and gave an exclamation. He thought he felt somebody's presence there. He lit his pocket lantern. The passage was empty. Then he cocked his revolver and said aloud, "All right, I'm going to fire." No reply. Not a sound. "It's an illusion, no doubt," he thought. "That creature is becoming an obsession. Come, if I want to pull off my stroke and win the game, I must hurry. The hole in which I hid the parcel of clothes is not far off. I shall take the parcel, and the trick is done. And what a trick! One of Lupin's best. ... Quote. He came to a door that stood open, and at once stopped. To the right was an excavation, the one which Monsieur Lenormand had made to escape from the rising water. He stooped and threw his light into the opening. "Oh," he said with a start. "No, it's not possible. Dudeville must have pushed the parcel farther along. But, search and pry into the darkness as he might, the parcel was gone, and he had no doubt but that it was once more the mysterious being who had taken it. What a pity! The thing was so neatly arranged. The adventure would have resumed its natural course, and I should have achieved my aim with greater certainty. As it is, I must push along as fast as I can. Dudeville is at the Pavillon Hortense. My retreat is insured. No more nonsense. I must hurry and set things straight again if I can, and we'll attend to him afterward. Oh, he'd better keep clear of my claws, that one." But an exclamation of stupor escaped his lips. He had come to the other door, and this door, the last before the garden house, was shut. He flung himself upon it. What was the good? What could he do? "This time," he muttered, "I'm badly done." And, seized with a sort of lassitude, he sat down. He had a sense of his weakness in the face of the mysterious being. Altenheim hardly counted, but the other, that person of darkness and silence, the other loomed up before him, upset all his plans, and exhausted him with his cunning and infernal attacks. He was beaten. Weber would find him there, like an animal run to earth, at the bottom of his cave. "Ah, no!" he cried, springing up with a bound. "No! If there were only myself, well and good. But there is Genevieve, who must be saved tonight. After all, the game is not yet lost. If the other one vanished just now, it proves that there is a second outlet somewhere near. Come, come, Weber and his merry men haven't got me yet." He had already begun to explore the tunnel, and, lantern in hand, was examining the bricks of which the horrible walls were formed, when a yell reached his ears, a dreadful yell that made his flesh creep with anguish. It came from the direction of the trap-door, and he suddenly remembered that he had left the trap-door open at the time when he intended to return to the Via des Glycines. He hurried back and passed through the first door. His lantern went out on the road, and he felt something, or rather somebody, brush past his knees, somebody crawl along the wall. And, at that same moment, he had a feeling that this being was disappearing, vanishing, he knew not which way. Just then his foot knocked against a step. This is the outlet, he thought, the second outlet, through which he passes. Overhead, the cry sounded again, less loud, followed by moans, by a hoarse gurgling. He ran up the stairs, came out in the basement room, and rushed to the Baron. Altenheim lay dying, with the blood streaming from his throat. His bonds were cut, but the wire that fastened his wrists and ankles was intact. His accomplice, being unable to release him, had cut his throat. Sernine gazed upon the sight with horror. An icy perspiration covered his whole body. He thought of Geneviève, imprisoned, helpless, abandoned to the most awful of deaths, because the Baron alone knew where she was hidden. He distinctly heard the policeman open the little back door in the hall. He distinctly heard them come down the kitchen stairs. There was nothing between him and them save one door, that of the basement room in which he was. He bolted the door at the very moment when the aggressors were laying hold of the handle. The trapdoor was open beside him. It meant possible safety because there remained the second outlet. No, he said to himself, Geneviève first. Afterward, if I have time, I will think of myself. He knelt down and put his hand on the Baron's breast. The heart was still beating. He stooped lower still. You can hear me, can't you? The eyelids flickered feebly. The dying man was just breathing. Was there anything to be obtained from this faint semblance of life? The policemen were attacking the door. The last rampart. Sernine whispered. I will save you. I have infallible remedies. One word only. Geneviève? ... It was as though this word of hope revived the man's strength. Altenheim tried to utter articulate sounds. Answer, said Sernine, persisting. Answer, and I will save you. Answer. It means your life today, your liberty tomorrow. Answer. ... The door shook under the blows that rained upon it. The Baron gasped out unintelligible syllables. Leaning over him, affrighted, straining all his energy, all his will to the utmost, Sernine panted with anguish. He no longer gave a thought to the policeman, his inevitable capture, prison. But Geneviève dying of hunger, whom one word from that villain could set free. Answer. You must. ... He ordered and entreated by turns. Altenheim stammered, as though hypnotized and defeated by that indomitable imperiousness. Rivoli. Rue de Rivoli, is that it? You have locked her up in a house in that street, eh? Which number? A loud din, followed by shouts of triumph. The door was down. Jump on him, lads, cried Monsieur Weber. Seize him! Seize both of them! And Sernine on his knees. The number! Answer. If you love her, answer. Why keep silence now? 20. 27, whispered the Baron. Hands were laid on Sernine. 10 revolvers were pointed at him. He rose and faced the policeman, who fell back with instinctive dread. If you stir, Lupin, cried Monsieur Weber, with his revolver leveled at him, I'll blow out your brains. Don't shoot, said Sernine solemnly. It's not necessary. I surrender. Humbug! This is another of your tricks. No, replied Sernine. The battle is lost. You have no right to shoot. I am not defending myself. He took out 2 revolvers and threw them on the floor. Humbug! Monsieur Weber repeated, implacably. Aim straight at his heart, lads. At the least movement, fire! At the least word, fire! There were 10 men there. He placed 5 more in position. He pointed their 15 right arms at the mark. And raging, shaking with joy and fear, he snarled. At his heart, at his head, and no pity. If he stirs, if he speaks, shoot him where he stands." Sernine smiled, impassively, with his hands in his pockets. Death was there, waiting for him, at 2 inches from his chest, at 2 inches from his temples. 15 fingers were curled round the triggers. "Ah," chuckled M. Weber, "this is nice, this is very nice. And I think that this time we've scored, and it's a nasty lookout for you, Master Lupin." ... Quote. He made one of his men draw back the shutters of a large air-hole, which admitted a sudden burst of daylight, and he turned toward Altenheim. But to his great amazement, the Baron, whom he thought dead, opened his eyes, glazed, awful eyes, already filled with all the signs of the coming dissolution. He stared at M. Weber. Then he seemed to look for somebody, and, catching sight of Sernine, had a convulsion of anger. He seemed to be waking from his torpor, and his suddenly reviving hatred restored a part of his strength. He raised himself on his 2 wrists and tried to speak. "You know him, eh?" asked M. Weber. "Yes." "It's Lupin, isn't it?" "Yes." "Lupin." Sernine, still smiling, listened. "Heavens, how I'm amusing myself," he declared. "Have you anything more to say?" asked M. Weber, who saw the Baron's lips making desperate attempts to move. "Yes." "About Monsieur Lenormand, perhaps?" "Yes." "Have you shut him up? Where? Answer." With all his heaving body, with all his tense glance, Altenheim pointed to a cupboard in the corner of the room. "There, he said. "Ah, we're burning," chuckled Lupin. M. Weber opened the cupboard. On one of the shelves was a parcel wrapped in black cloth. He opened it and found a hat, a little box, some clothes. He gave a start. He had recognized M. Lenormand's olive-green frock-coat. "Oh, the villains!" he cried. "They have murdered him." "No," said Altenheim, shaking his head. "Then?" "It's he. "What do you mean by he? Did Lupin kill the chief?" "No." Altenheim was clinging to existence with fierce obstinacy, eager to speak and to accuse. The secret which he wished to reveal was at the tip of his tongue, and he was not able, did not know how to translate it into words. "Come," the deputy chief insisted. "Monsieur Lenormand is dead, surely?" "No." "He's alive?" "Yes." "I don't understand. Look here, these clothes, this frock-coat, ... Quote. Altenheim turned his eyes toward Sernine. An idea struck M. Weber. "Ah, I see. Lupin stole Monsieur Lenormand's clothes and reckoned upon using them to escape with—" "Yes." "Not bad," cried the deputy chief. "It's quite a trick in his style. In this room we should have found Lupin disguised as Monsieur Lenormand, chained up, no doubt. It would have meant his safety, only he hadn't time. That's it, isn't it?" Yes. But, by the appearance of the dying man's eyes, M. Weber felt that there was more, and that the secret was not exactly that. What was it then? What was the strange and unintelligible puzzle which Altenheim wanted to explain before dying? He questioned him again. "And where is Monsieur Lenormand himself?" "There." "What do you mean? Here?" "Yes." "But there are only ourselves here." There's... Oh, speak." "There's... Sernine." "Sernine? Eh, what?" "Sernine, Lenormand." M. Weber gave a jump. A sudden light flashed across him. No, it's not possible," he muttered. "This is madness." He gave a side glance at his prisoner. Sernine seemed to be greatly diverted, and to be watching the scene with the air of a playgoer who is thoroughly amused and very anxious to know how the piece is going to end. Altenheim, exhausted by his efforts, had fallen back at full length. Would he die before revealing the solution of the riddle which his strange words had propounded? M. Weber, shaken by an absurd, incredible surmise, which he did not wish to entertain, and which persisted in his mind in spite of him, made a fresh, determined attempt. "Explain the thing to us. What's at the bottom of it? What mystery?" The other seemed not to hear and lay lifeless, with staring eyes. Monsieur Weber lay down beside him, with his body touching him, and, putting great stress upon his words, so that each syllable should sink down to the very depths of that brain already merged in darkness, said, "Listen, I have understood you correctly, have I not? Lupin and Lenormand." He needed an effort to continue, so monstrous did the words appear to him. Nevertheless, the Baron's dimmed eyes seemed to contemplate him with anguish. He finished the sentence, shaking with excitement, as though he were speaking blasphemy. "That's it, isn't it? You're sure? The two are one and the same?" ... Quote. The eyes did not move. A little blood trickled from one corner of the man's mouth. He gave 2 or 3 sobs, a last spasm, and all was over. A long silence reigned in that basement room filled with people. Almost all the policemen guarding Sernine had turned round and, stupefied, not understanding or not willing to understand, they still listened to the incredible accusation which the dying scoundrel had been unable to put into words. M. Weber took the little box which was in the parcel and opened it. It contained a gray wig, a pair of spectacles, a maroon-colored neckerchief, and, in a false bottom, a pot or two of makeup and a case containing some tiny tufts of gray hair. In short, all that was needed to complete a perfect disguise in the character of Monsieur Lenormand. He went up to Sernine, and looking at him for a few seconds without speaking, thoughtfully reconstructing all the phases of the adventure, he muttered, "So it's true?" Sernine, who had retained his smiling calmness, replied, "The suggestion is a pretty one, and a bold one. But, before I answer, tell your men to stop worrying me with those toys of theirs." "Very well," said Monsieur Weber, making a sign to his men, "and now answer. What? Are you Monsieur Lenormand?" "Yes." Exclamations arose. Jean d'Hauteville, who was there, while his brother was watching the secret outlet, Jean d'Hauteville, Sernine's own accomplice, looked at him in dismay. Sieur Weber stood undecided. "That takes your breath away, eh?" said Sernine. "I admit that it's rather droll. Lord, how you used to make me laugh sometimes, when we were working together, you and I, the chief and the deputy chief. And the funniest thing is that you thought our worthy Monsieur Lenormand dead, as well as poor Gourel. But no, old chap, there's life in the old dog yet." He pointed to Altenheim's corpse. "There, it was that scoundrel who pitched me into the water in a sack, with a paving stone round my waist. Only, he forgot to take away my knife. And with a knife one rips open sacks and cuts ropes. So you see, you unfortunate Altenheim, if you had thought of that, you wouldn't be where you are. But enough said. Peace to your ashes." M. Weber listened, not knowing what to think. At last, he made a gesture of despair, as though he gave up the idea of forming a reasonable opinion. "The handcuffs," he said, suddenly alarmed. "If it amuses you," said Sernine, and, picking out d'Hauteville in the front row of his assailants, he put out his wrists. "There, my friend, you shall have the honor, and don't trouble to exert yourself. I'm playing square, as it's no use doing anything else." He said this in a tone that gave d'Hauteville to understand that the struggle was finished for the moment, and that there was nothing to do but submit. d'Hauteville fastened the handcuffs. Without moving his lips or contracting a muscle of his face, Sernine whispered, 27, Rue de Rivoli, Genevieve." Monsieur Weber could not suppress a movement of satisfaction at the sight. "Come along," he said. "To the detective office." "That's it, to the detective office," cried Sernine. "Monsieur Lenormand will enter Arsène Lupin in the jail book, and Arsène Lupin will enter Prince Sernine." "You're too clever, Lupin." "That's true, Weber. We shall never get on, you and I." During the drive in the motor car, escorted by 3 other cars filled with policemen, he did not utter a word. They did not stay long at the detective office. M.U. Weber, remembering the escapes effected by Lupin, sent him up at once to the fingerprint department, and then took him to the dépôt, whence he was sent on to the Santé prison. The governor had been warned by telephone, and was waiting for him. The formalities of the entry of commitment and of the searching were soon got over, and at 7 o'clock in the evening, Prince Paul Sernine crossed the threshold of cell 14 in the 2nd Division. "Not half bad, your rooms," he declared. "Not bad at all. Electric light, central heating, every requisite. Capital! Mr. Governor, I'll take this room." He flung himself on the bed. "Oh, Mr. Governor, I have one little favor to ask of you." "What is that?" "Tell them not to bring me my chocolate before 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm awfully sleepy." He turned his face to the wall. 5 minutes later he was sound asleep.